All right, here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Non-Victim Nation podcast. I am here today with two of my favorite people. That is Josh Logan from Guardian Training Consulting and Lee Moisev,
Oh, that's good enough.
close enough,
Yeah.
from Barely Training Company in San Diego.
Yep.
We had the fortune of doing a training class at a place called Range 2131
Yep.
that was hosted by Matt Vanderhart, um, who was just an outstanding guy, and we've got lots to talk about as far as like the class and everything that happened there. So
Yeah.
there we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. It was a great training, great time. We all had fun, I think.
Yeah,
And gosh, that place is amazing. Being out here in Arizona and doing a class with him it was a treat. It was something that I was just blown away by the facility.
yeah.
So, and Matt's a good dude.
Yeah, weather was perfect.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
just proud of you. God came here to Arizona and you know got to get some good training together.
Yeah.
And again, Matt, like salt of the earth individual, like just runs a great facility. Like again, not leaves us alone in the disrespectful manner, but lets us do what we do best.
Right.
And he does what he does best. And like honestly, one of the best hosts I've ever had for a range. Right,
Agreed.
set up target stands, and uh, picking up brass. Like, are you kidding
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
I have never seen a host of a range
Yeah.
never shoot a single round
Hmm.
and pick up brass.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. That's
Yeah.
absolutely insane. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Man, when we showed up and Josh and I got there early and the fire pit was going and everything, I was like, oh, it's gonna be a good day.
Yeah.
I
It
can
is.
just feel it.
and some backstory on that. It's like we never even saw the range.
Yeah.
So we just saw aerials of the
Okay.
range. We never actually had on-site intelligence of this range until we stepped on that range, 45 minutes before it started.
Hmm.
Nice.
And so like he's like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And everything was just set up ready to go.
We even called an audible right when we got there because he asked me earlier. I was like, based on the Instagram photos, I think I want to use the rifle range. And when we got there, I was like, no, let's just use that range. And Matt was like, cool, we'll
Boom.
just drive everything over there
Right.
instead.
Yeah.
Him and
Yeah.
Hayden, Matt and Hayden. I mean, Hayden got on the line for a little bit and
Yeah.
just like completely seamless. And it's just like he helped fix a couple guns
Hmm.
here and there, and it's just like,
Yep.
dang, like it.
Well, just like you were saying, he's done such a good job with that, and him being available and willing to help. That other places, they don't do any of that shit. It's like everything is 100%. You go do it.
Yeah.
You set up all the targets. You clean up all the brass. You clean up everything, and just like they're not willing to help with anything. They just want to charge you the money and leave you alone,
Yeah.
if that.
I mean, and that's kind of expected. I mean, that's kind of
I
expected
mean, that's
performance.
standard. So
That's standard.
it's not any negative. It's
Right.
just that standard.
Mhm.
Like he goes above and beyond,
Right.
which is unprecedented. So that's when you're like, whoa, you love me,
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah. When we showed up, and he's like, how many target stands you need? I'll pull them. Well, I'll drive him over there with my truck. I'm like, dang, I usually show up like 2 hours early to do this all by myself.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it was super cool. Super cool
Mhm.
guy, super cool place.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, without naming names, like we were just recently at a place, and in the middle of the scheduled time that you had, they said, "Oh, by the way, you can't be here because we've got something else going on." It's like, the fuck does that work? I just paid for the time and space.
Kind of reserved it 5 months ago,
Yeah.
and paid 50% up front, and it's like it's not trying to sound disrespectful, but it's business,
Yeah.
yeah.
right? I reserved this 5 months ago, and I have a set time frame, and my clients expect that,
Hmm.
and now I have to, lack of better terms, modify around that. It's just like you know, and it's not to talk crap about facilities, but it's like, why are you making it difficult for me to make you money?
Right.
Yeah.
Like I'm bringing you door swings. I potentially could be selling memberships. I'm doing all this, and it's like all I want is success. That's it. It's all I want. I'm a real training company with real instructors, with real insurance, and we're doing everything above board. There's none of
Right.
this backdoor dealings. I'm willing to pay, lack of better terms, full price.
Hmm.
I'm not asking for discounts. I'm not asking like just tell me how much it is, and if it's too much, then we can just shake hands and I can go on my way. If it's reasonable, then we can work it out.
Right.
But once we work it out,
Yeah.
That's that.
like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Just a couple of things you expect is that you actually get the space you reserved, and when we move to the area and the people that were there prior, it's like, okay, it's for you to pack your shit up and go.
yeah,
We shouldn't have to be like
Yeah.
helping to escort you out.
but also the thing of the agreements in terms of what we can and can't do,
Hmm.
right? And there's some training orders, well, not training orders, but facilities. They're like, we want to know what you're teaching, and I'm like, well, why does like tell me what I can and can't do on this range, right? If I can't use vehicles, just tell me. If I
Mhm.
can't use barricades, tell me. If I can't draw from this, if you don't allow appendix, if you don't allow serpo holsters, like all these different minutia, just tell
Mhm.
me,
Right.
right? Gladly tell me the confines I can and can't do. But when I'm within those confines, don't change midstream.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just leave me alone.
And
I'm working within your rules. We're good.
correct.
So
And why do I
here's
need a watchful? Why do I need an additional watchful eye over me,
right.
right? Besides the watchful eyes of my instructors.
Mhm.
If you trust me, then trust me. If you don't,
Mhm.
then what are we doing here,
Why? Yeah, what's the deal?
right?
So I guess that's the question I have is like, why do they care in the first place?
I don't know.
Why, whether you're doing
Control.
certain,
Yeah.
They just want to
you know,
know. They just want to be in
and
control. They
and
just
I'm
want
sure
to.
that there's a lot of liability and things that have to be
Oh,
involved. That's why you
there's
sign waivers and stuff. Everybody that's
exactly.
out there signs
There's
them.
contracts and waivers and all
Yeah,
that.
it's
That's
like so.
covered.
Well, I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
I'm going to give a shout out to the ranch
Mhm.
in South Texas. I met him. His name's Chad. And Chad, you're listening. I appreciate it. I'll tag him. But I met him at SHOT Show, and his agree is he bought an old Blackwater training facility, and we're going to be doing
Mhm.
training. It's an hour outside of San Antonio, Texas, and like we met just a chance meeting in the hallway of SHOT Show, the classic, like chance meeting and SHOT Show. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
it. I love those. The plan meetings go great, but when you do the chance meeting in the hallway, and so we talked about like expectations, and he's like, obviously you're a reputable training company, and you did it. I'm like, yeah, check all the proverbial boxes.
Mhm.
And he's like, so what I'm going to do is like, if you rent the facility, tell me how many target stands you need. I'll set the target stands and backers up. Hell, you even take a picture of the way you want your target set up. I will have my staff set all your targets. So all you have to do
Mhm.
is show up right with your coffee, and I'll have the range bucket with the staple gun and all their accoutrements, and have the range radio. And
Mhm.
so if there's any problems, you just get on the range radio, and one of my guys will come out with a side by side to help you.
Right.
And I will not have a guy there watching you, because I don't want my guy to be there to watch you, because if something happens, then we create the liability. I'm like, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I just want to leave you alone. Like
Mhm.
you're a quality instructor, you're vetted, and I just want to make it easy for you to make money and me to make money.
Mhm.
I'm like, so you want mailbox money? And he goes, as easy of mailbox money. I said,
Right.
so our relationship with Chad is yes, we're going to build something awesome.
Mhm.
But he's just like this. He's like, I just want to get out of your way,
Mhm.
and I want to facilitate it. So like that essentially is I'm paying him a good sum of money to catch my clients' bullets.
Right.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Mhm.
He's like, I don't want to be involved in the training business. I don't want any part of your business. And I said, and I don't want any part of really owning a
Yeah.
facility.
Right.
And he's just like, so you get it. I'm like, who are you?
Yeah. And that's how it works the best. You do you,
Yeah.
I do me, and we help each other. We do.
And rising tides
Easy.
raise all ships.
100%. I was
Yeah.
just thinking that a minute ago. Yeah. That's how it works.
Mhm.
You want me to pay you? Make it easy.
Right.
Right.
What a concept.
It's right. And like this class, it's like, we're not competitors.
Yeah.
We're collaborators.
Oh,
Right.
100%.
I don't look at Lee Barely as a competitor,
Yeah. Not even like we're brothers,
right?
Mhm.
Like I live out there, he lives here. We'll hang out and still do the same stuff.
Right.
It's been a fun weekend.
Absolutely.
It's been a
That's
blast.
yeah. I've been staying at his house, so
Nice.
I had so much fun.
Playing with the puppy.
Yeah. Puppy, he
Mhm.
loves me.
He does.
You know, going and cruising around, having fun, just hanging out, brotherhood, and
Right.
it's been a really good weekend.
Making poor decisions at gun stores.
Yeah. Making expensive decisions. It's a correct decision. It's just expensive,
Right.
but it's beautiful. But yeah, it's been super fun, man. And it's good to have like no agenda and just be brothers and hanging out and be like, okay, we have class tomorrow. What time you leave? I don't know. Maybe I'll get up at like 7. We'll take off.
Mhm.
All right, cool. 6:30 we're packing the truck and we leave. And it's just simple. It's easy.
Right.
Like when you're just doing it together, it's easy.
Yeah.
So easy.
So this is a question that pertains to kind of all training, not just specifically what we did yesterday. And that is like when you're doing these classes, people are showing up with their own gear. They paid their money to get, and for whatever reason, some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it's, probably needs work.
Mhm.
They don't have probably a lot of education about what they're getting. They're just getting something,
Yeah.
and they feel like, well, this should work, and And you find out very quickly whether it does or doesn't once you start putting it into practice. I found that out the hard way,
Yeah.
because I had all kinds of malfunctions with my stuff because I haven't touched it in over a year, you know. Um, but just like when you're dealing with those people in your own mind, because you do know more about equipment and about, different optics and different, everything that's kind of tied to that. When you're dealing with somebody that has something that looks like they just bought it at a garage sale, you know, is it harder to instruct them knowing that they could have better equipment
No,
versus
I don't think that at all because
okay,
my firm belief is you use what you got.
okay,
Like if it's crap, you're gonna figure it out
hmm
because like we were in the class yesterday, everyone ran their guns hard,
hmm
right? And I kept saying throughout the day, you're gonna find your failure points in gear, in your guns, and in yourself,
hmm
right? So run what you got. If you have a $10 optic and it dies halfway through the day, you're gonna learn this is the class I needed to learn that in, right?
right,
So I just teach to the student. I don't teach the equipment, and they'll figure it out. Like some people were saying, like, "Oh, this is rubbing me right here." I'm like, "Figure it out." But I'm glad
yeah,
you learned it today and not when you're actually using it, right?
right.
So
Not
I
when somebody's
never
shooting at you.
but then I'll make a session. I'll be like, this optic died. Well, yeah, I mean, you kind of get what you pay for. If you want, I can send you a link to some other options. And I'm
hmm
not going to send them all like aim point options. I'm going to send them like a scale of options and be like, hey, these are things that I would recommend for your
hmm
application.
Yeah, I call
Right.
it good, better, best,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like this is a good optic. Like there are cheap optics out there, and I think you're alluding to that,
hmm
right? The
Yeah,
the Amazon special, those are cheap.
yeah,
But like a good I like to say cost effective optic.
yeah.
So like good, better, and then best,
And top
like
tier, yeah.
top tier, and it's going to cost you top tier prices.
hmm
But like I to my answer to it is it it does hurt training in some regards
hmm
Yeah,
because it slows the class down. Like Lee and I were talking, and we're talking about to you is like every AR class that I teach, whether it's military, law enforcement, or civilians, every pistol red dot class, those two big ones,
hmm
I'm wrenching on guns,
yeah.
Right.
no matter what, right? It's I'm wrenching on an optic, I'm wrenching on a gun, I'm wrenching on some type of weapons mounted lights flying off. That happens.
Butt stocks turning.
After that's not by
Yeah.
mistake.
Like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, that's supposed to be straight in line with the gun, not
Yeah.
No, when you angle the gun that way, it
yeah, it
helps.
just fits in the shoulder pocket.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So like we're wrenching on guns, but it does slow the class down.
hmm
And I've watched with gear issues is if it's one gear issue, B, that's another gear issue. And so like when I explain to people in my class, like I want your, and Ben Stegler says it the best is I want your frustration, like you're a pot of water, the student,
hmm
and I want to bring the temperature of your frustration up to where it's simmering
hmm
and not boiling over.
Right.
So I want it simmering, like at that perfect level. And I never want to boil over the top because that's when I'm going into negative thought, interaction,
Yeah,
performance, and
hmm
100%.
and that. And what I see is like when gear starts failing them, that it's just like, the optic's not right. And I have to go to a backup gun or a backup optic, or I'm having to give them my gun,
Yeah.
and it's not optimized for them. And you just start seeing that frustration raise.
hmm
And so we
Their
we
minds closed.
yeah.
hmm
Their minds shut down. Like I said, the motto of my company is have fun, train hard. If you're frustrated because your
Oh, have
gun ain't
fun.
working, you ain't training hard. You're
Right.
so focused on your shit being fucked up
hmm
that you can't think about what you're supposed to be
And it
doing.
ain't fun.
No, it's
Yeah.
not
It
at
ain't
all.
fun.
And that's why in a lot of my classes, I'll be like, go set that down. Here's my gun. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like I don't care anymore. I'm tired of working with this. You need to train. Just use my gun. I know it works. Go.
And
Right.
I see the best instructors like Lee.
hmm
In my experience of doing this for almost 20 years, is the best instructors like Lee does is just reframing it,
hmm
right? And going like, okay, you bought a site mark $125 optic on Amazon, and it takes a crap on you. Instead of saying, well, simply, he doesn't say that. He said it. You said it a little too simple. Is that you get what you pay for, but he contextualizes it.
hmm
It's not as simple as you get what you pay for. It's like, hey, this is a consideration to think about.
hmm
And in my experience, this is why it failed.
hmm
But due to that, we're going to continue training.
Yeah.
And let's listen. We talked about, like I'd rather fail in training
Absolutely. Yeah.
hmm
than having to do it in the real world and find that.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about it, right? Is
hmm
is is the reason why Lee and I's gear didn't fail, right? We didn't have any issues with our gears because we had all the issues
Yeah.
before.
Right.
right? We've just been doing this for years, and we've just found gear that works and works for us and survives.
Yeah.
It's just we've had more failures than most of our students have even
Mhm.
bought it.
Every time someone shows up in one of like class session and they have a brand new plate carrier, I'm like, that guy's not gonna be comfortable today.
No.
Yeah.
And then you see mine and it's just dirty and dusty and salt stained, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I feel at home. Like I put
Mhm.
this on, it's just like putting on a jacket. Like I don't, it just
Yeah.
who I
Right.
am because I've gone through and that part that rubbed me, I've literally cut it out. Those things that would tuck under, I cut them out.
Mhm.
I've optimized my gear to work for me in
Mhm.
my body type,
Mhm.
and it's just comfortable.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
look at the rifle that I was training with. Like I've carried that my entire law enforcement career, and
Mhm.
that's 17 years of it, and it's like it's loved.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like it's really, really loved.
Yeah.
And so somebody could look at it and go, you don't take care of your stuff. And I'm like, no, it runs Ricky tick tick. Like I
Mhm.
didn't have a single malfunction
Yeah.
yesterday.
Right.
And I still haven't cleaned it, and it's just I know that it's gonna work every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Mhm.
But it's okay. We all have anybody that spends any modicum of time in this industry has a Tupperware of optics, has a Tupperware of
Yeah.
holsters,
Box of shame.
of shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And you're like, what the hell was I thinking when I
Yeah.
bought that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just that's and so our job, as instructors is to streamline that,
Mhm.
right? You know, you don't have to buy an 8-point comp M5. Like my optic on my rifle with my mount is almost $2,000. Like
Right.
that's not cost effective to anybody. Now
Mhm.
I didn't pay 2,000 because it does pay to be in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it helps.
It does pay to be
Yeah.
in the industry, but
Yeah. I not on my rifle, I had an SRO, no, MRO. I had an
Mhm.
MRO on one was a Skull Works mount and one is a Reptilia mount. Like those mounts just for a red dot mount, another $300, but
yeah,
it works for me. I've
Mhm.
tested it, I've run it, and and like some of the guys running suppressors and they're like, my gun's super dry. I'm like, yeah, because you haven't run your suppressor this hard.
yeah,
You
Right.
need to get some oil in there ASAP.
Yeah.
And I learned that too, because when I
Mhm.
first got a suppressor and I ran it, my gun's super dry, why won't it work? Oh, it's the can, back pressure, gas.
Yeah.
Oh, now it works. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So I failed at that too when I first got into it and I
Mhm.
ran my guns hard. And now I know.
Right.
It's simple.
yeah,
And so that's something like in one of the other classes that I took with you, kind of as we're going around at the end, giving our feedback, that was one of the things that I pointed out, that it's important that people do find those failure points while they're in those classes.
Mhm.
So they're not finding it like when somebody's shooting at you.
right,
That's not the good time for that,
Yeah.
you
right,
know. But also kind of to illustrate the same idea, it's like what you think is suitable may not necessarily meet the needs that you think that it's going to,
sure,
you know.
yeah. And I see it a lot. I mean, I travel in this country. I've seen guys with like Knight's Armament rifles. You're
Mhm.
looking at like a 4,000 starting rifle,
Yeah.
with a Night Force ATACR. That's another $2,500 LPVO, and a spur mount that's like $450.
Mhm.
Full everything, and it's
Mhm.
just and they don't know how to run that gun to save their damn life.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I see this guy over here with a Palmetto State Armory gun, which when Palmetto State gets it right, they do a good job,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
right? When they don't do a good job,
Yeah.
it's a freaking shit show. But like when the PSA gun works really well, this guy shows up with a Palmetto State Armory rifle, basic good rifle,
Mhm.
right? With a let's just call it a mid tier optic like an 8-point Pro, or because that thing was bomber back in the day,
Mhm.
or even a Vortex red dot like a
Yeah.
Spitfire Sparkfire.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
he shows up with that with just a Magpul sling
Mhm.
that all in maybe $1,200 at the most, $1,100,
Mhm.
and this guy's over here with an $8,000 rifle, and this dude's spinning circles around him.
And that dude with the $8,000 rifle can't carry it because he put so many Gucci parts on it that it weighs 75 pounds.
Yeah,
Right.
And this guy over here is just sprinting down range and clacking off rounds.
Mhm.
because there's two limitations to an AR-15 accessorizing it: your imagination and your bankroll.
Yeah.
Your imagination gets your
Yeah.
bankroll in trouble.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah, and you can turn a perfectly good 6.5, 7 pound rifle into a 14-pound monstrosity
Yeah.
that quick.
Because it looked cool online.
Well,
The CDI, the chicks dig it shit.
well, that, and you end up with people that have accessories on there that they have no means of ever using,
Yeah.
like the PEC 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have night vision equipment? Well, then why do you have that on there?
Well, the laser doesn't turn on. Like it's called infrared.
Yeah.
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 So just little things like that. They see it in movies and they talk to other people
Yeah.
and think this is what they're supposed to have. It's like you don't actually need that.
Yeah. 100%. But it looks cool.
You know, it's cool.
Like we were even talking about lasers last night, and I was like, I rarely use my laser to shoot.
Hmm.
I use it for communication. And at night with nods on in a house, like I can communicate with my team everything. I can circle doors, I can draw
Hmm.
pathways, I can for deconfliction purposes, like I use it more for communication than I even do aiming. And people don't understand, like I have that tool for that need. I'm not just sitting there turning on the laser and holding my gun out until the laser hits the target and pulling the trigger.
Like a lot of
Yeah.
nod classes I see,
Yeah.
right? Just like it's weird because like we were talking about nods classes and Guardian is very fundamental based. Like
Hmm.
that's what I love about our collaboration is Barely has a great brand profile when it comes to advanced applications and
Hmm.
very I would say very niche classes where while Guardian's very fundamental based.
Hmm.
I told people like you don't want me to run a nods class, an intro to nods class, because you won't be shooting in the intro to nods class.
Yeah.
You're going to be learning how to tie your shoes,
Yeah.
move from point A to point B without eating shit, drive a golf cart a road course,
Hmm.
changing a tire,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right, with nods on, reading a book,
Hmm.
a sentence with that, like
Yeah.
that, reading a map,
Yeah.
right,
Just
Yeah.
looking at your friend's face. I mean, like,
right,
what's that?
right,
Yeah.
or like punching numbers on something.
On a grid, yeah.
Like that to me that's the stuff. Think about how much in our lives we do that
Hmm.
doesn't involve shooting.
Right.
So then you need to do the same things that don't involve shooting with a nods class.
Yeah.
But what do people want to do when you go to nods classes?
Go out shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with our low light class,
Yeah.
right? Our low light class, like, is it truly a flashlight class, or is it understanding and understanding light, what
Yeah.
it can and can't do for you, right?
Right.
Understanding the properties of light, understanding, how it can be good, how it can be bad,
Hmm.
and then how much do we really spend talking about flashlights,
Yeah.
like in the basic in that world, right?
Hmm.
Practical applications are the flashlight techniques,
Hmm.
but we talk about photonic barriers, we talk about lumens versus candela, we talk about operating from the lowest levels of light, and the actual flat. But when I see low light classes from other companies,
Hmm.
it's simply put a flashlight class,
Right.
right? Let's shoot with no lights on.
I, I've done a low light class and I had them use their weapon light once
Yeah.
the whole night. And they're
Mhm.
like, well, I thought I'd be using it more. I was like, why? You know how
Yeah.
to point a light at something and shoot it. That's easy. I don't have to teach you that.
Right.
I need to teach you technique to do other things in your
Mhm.
toolbox.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
they were
That,
like, yeah, we used it like once in the beginning. I was like, yeah, I just need to see you shoot. That was it.
yeah.
Or
I
how
need
to
you shoot with two hands with focused on target, make sure you're safe, and then we can do
Right.
other stuff.
or like when if you're running a laser aiming device on your rifle, how do you zero it?
Yeah.
How do you create a parallel zero?
Yep.
I don't know how many times we're like, oh, I just zeroed a certain range. I'm like, so you're creating a co-witness that you can actually create an X,
Yep.
or are you parallel zeroing it?
Yep.
Where is it located on your forend? And they're like, I never thought of these important things. I'm like,
Yeah.
because you just went to a class to shoot.
Hmm.
That's all you did.
Yep.
So I sort of equate that to like, I'm gonna give you a helicopter. It's like, and here's the key. Go get them. It's
Right.
like there's a
Right.
little more to it than that. It isn't as simple as I'm just gonna get in it and fly it. And even if you could, landing is probably going to be a much bigger deal for you.
Yeah.
Well,
It's like,
well, it is different. It's different from like in my career. I sat in the backseat of helicopters for a
mhm,
large sum of my military career.
uh,
That doesn't mean I know how to fly them,
right.
right? I
Yeah.
wasn't the guy with the belt back in the back with the belt fed, right?
Hmm.
Now, did I understand certain concepts?
Right.
Yes. But that doesn't mean that I'm qualified or certified,
Uh-huh.
because there's difference between certified and qualified,
Hmm.
much less qualified or certified to fly that helicopter, right? I see that a lot.
So I don't know if there's an exact term for this, but there's the idea of doing something competently and doing that exact same thing under duress.
Yeah.
Okay.
Automaticity. You're talking about
Is that what it is?
automaticity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's where a lot of people they get stuck in this idea. Well, it's like, well, I know how to do that, so I'm always going to be able to do that. It's like, well, when
Yeah.
there's something else happening that is demanding your attention, you're
Yeah.
not going to be that simply focused.
Well, we talk like I just went to the Force Science course, and being
Hmm.
a Force Science certified analyst, we talk a lot about that. Like,
Hmm.
not just from the simple levels of competency, like unconscious incompetence, conscious competence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, all the way up to subconscious competence. Like those are the four levels of competency. But reaching a level what we call automaticity, right?
Hmm.
We're not multitasking, right? We have to at one point have to have a task that's that to a level of automaticity.
Mhm.
So for texting and driving, we're not doing one of those. We're not doing well,
Right.
right? And but the reason why we can get away with listening to music and not paying attention to driving as much is because driving has reached a level of automaticity that we can kind of sit back
Mhm.
and listen, and we can listen to lyrics. But I tell people this, like now the best test is now when you get close to your destination, what do you do to the stereo?
Turn it down or you turn it
Why
off.
does that have to do with anything with your vision,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? It's because you're limiting the distractions.
Mhm.
So I tell people this, like Dr. Bill Lewinsky said the best, multitasking is a farce.
Mhm.
So I challenge people. So he challenged us to do this. So I want you to say your ABCs. You can sing them. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. While you're doing that, you're going to have to solve simple problems, simple single digit problems. So as you're writing A, B, C, D, E, F, G,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to give you 2 plus 2, 1 plus 1, 2 plus 3.
Right.
But you cannot stop writing the alphabet.
Right.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's engaging different parts of your cognitive function, right?
Well, you're having your cognitive load
Mhm.
becomes overwhelmed,
Yeah.
right? So our conscious cognitive brain, right, has almost so much bandwidth.
Mhm.
So I like to use it like, and now the kids, I mean, Hunter won't know what I'm talking about. 56K modems, right? So
Right.
at one time for us to see the internet, we had to get somebody off the phone,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? We had to get somebody off the phone,
Uh-huh.
right? And how much bandwidth did you really have at 56K, comparatively speaking to where we are now with fiber optics?
Mhm.
So our automaticity brain, right?
Mhm.
Our hippocampus and thalamus, right, has the ability to process insane amounts of information through heuristics, which we call shortcuts,
Mhm.
right? So we've through experience, and one of the best ways best explanations I ever had about the brain
Mhm.
was from Dr. Bill Lewinsky. He said this: the brain is not used to simply store memories.
Right.
What the brain is used to do is to have the memories. So a lot of people think just brains are just store memories just for the sake of storing
Mhm.
memories, but realize that the brain is used to store memories for survival,
Right.
right? So that when you get into danger, you now can create shortcuts to save your life.
Mhm.
And so but we remember memories outside of the things that keep us safe,
Mhm.
right? That keep us, because it's naturally that's what our brain does. And so like that's the key factor, is if you don't have it to a level of automaticity, you
Mhm.
won't rise to the occasion,
Right.
because you're too much, you're what we call internal external,
Mhm.
right? If you're thinking about the gun in your hand, you're internally focused
Mhm.
and you're not thinking about the external world.
Right.
If you can reach the level of the internal focus being the level of what we call automaticity,
Mhm.
where does the bandwidth allow us to do? To go external.
Right.
This is why the person that gets into a gunfight says, I just kept looking at my gun. I'm like, because your level of automaticity,
Mhm.
or your muscle memory or myelination of neural pathways, has not been established enough,
Mhm.
and you forget about what happens in front of you.
Right.
And the person just came out of nowhere. It's like they didn't come out of nowhere. You just
Yeah.
never saw it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? The strobe light was blinking too slow, and
Mhm.
you missed too much Mr. Roboto between
Right.
the two. And that's what happens. And
Mhm.
that's what we see in our use of force simulation class,
Mhm.
right? There's these
Right.
large swaths of information that they're missing,
Yeah, because they get very tunnel vision.
or even worse.
Yeah.
But so the tunnel vision, a lot
Mhm.
of people think that's a blood flow issue.
Mhm.
It's a mind issue.
Mhm.
So when they're so internally focused about what they're doing at themselves that
Mhm.
their eyes can't see it,
Mhm.
right? So the best experts, what we see is what we call quiet eyes. So they actually did a study on how fast the eye saccadic movement.
Mhm.
The faster somebody's eyes saccade during a critical stress moment, the less they see.
Okay, that makes
So the
sense.
best experts, they have what they possess, what they call quiet eyes.
Mhm.
They focus on what they need to focus on through experience, knowing where to focus.
Mhm.
So, for example, like your drill, the El Presidentes and stuff like
Yep.
that, where they're moving from target to target, right? The best shooters go boom, boom, and their eyes are they don't even look at their shots
Yeah.
at what they just did,
Mhm.
because
They'll be like this.
they'll be like this when they're shooting their next shot, that shot,
Yeah.
and then right. So their eyes are very still,
Mhm.
while the novice is trying to watch the dot or watch that and trying to focus on what we're doing here, that it takes so much time to transition to the next target, and they wonder why they're slow
Right.
because they haven't developed the shortcuts and the heuristics to get to that point
Yeah.
into a level of automaticity,
Mhm.
right? And that's what
Well,
they
I
do it.
mean, we were
They just do it
talking
more
about that
efficiently.
in the truck on the way home. Like one of the guys asked Josh, like, how did you guys do all that stuff so fast? And he's like, because we weren't thinking about it. We're just doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, reloads and mag changes and moving and pointing the gun in the right direction. You don't think about it. You have a level of automaticity about it, and you focus on, I'm going to run to that place, but
Mhm.
my gun automatically goes in the right spot because I've just been trained that way.
Right.
You know, it's simple. I don't go. Whereas new people, they're like, you know, I'm constantly yelling, put your gun up, because they have to think about it still.
Right.
And then when they're doing that, they're looking at this and they stop looking at where they're running.
And then they
Mhm.
run into a barrel
Yeah,
or they go ass over tea kettle.
yeah,
And so and the problem with our industry is I hear it a lot is, well, it's innate, but what Josh and Lee did in that video is innate. I'm like, absolutely not.
Mhm.
None of that is innately within us as humans.
Right.
Everything we did was a completely learned behavior.
100%.
And the only thing we had to cognitively process was, saying when we reach our limit of rounds, right? Saying moving, move, and where's Lee at for me? Where's Lee at? And where are
Mhm.
we going?
Right.
Yep.
That's it. That's all I had to think about. I
Mhm.
didn't have to think about flipping the safety on. I didn't have to think about where my muzzle is in relation to Lee.
Mhm.
I knew that if I put it in the proper place that I've been trained to do, that I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So my eyes aren't looking around going, oh shit, where's Lee? Where's my guy? It's going, there's
Yeah.
Lee, there's where I need to go.
Mhm.
And then my eyes shift to the target
Mhm.
because that's what's important. And now I don't have to see where I'm going because I already know where I'm going and I already know where Lee's at. So how still are my eyes? Extremely still.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then as say I'm running and this is a gunfight, and say I'm running from position A to position B, how much information am I really gathering on the target? A substantial amount
Right.
because I'm no longer focused on what he's doing because
Mhm.
he's going to follow me or I'm going to follow him. And we know where we're going. So I don't need to look there anymore.
Mhm.
What do I need to focus on? Home
Exactly.
slice down that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And they're like, how did you know that he was wearing a blue shirt with this and that and the other? It's because I was looking dead at him
Mhm.
Mhm.
and I was thinking about him.
Mhm.
But everything else, and that's the scary part is when you see guys that do that kind of stuff well,
Mhm.
they make it look what?
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy,
Mhm.
right? And it's not just firearms, it's everything in the world, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The best at what they do, and I'm not trying to be sound pretentious, but the best at what they do, make it look easy. And so you're
Mhm.
like, I can do that. Like, and then they're
That
like,
and that was yesterday when
oh
we were talking.
crap.
I specifically told them, "Hey, we didn't demo that first for a reason. I
Mhm.
wanted them to do it on their own, find the difficulties, and then watch us do it and be like, oh, it can be easy, but
Right.
I'm not that level."
Yeah.
Because if we gave them the
Okay.
easy look first, they'd be like, "Oh, we can do that," and then they would have just shit showed all over the place.
Or
Right.
monkey see, monkey do,
Yeah, be
right?
like, "Okay, I remember where he went." Like
Mhm.
that's why I even told people before the drill, "Hey, if you're coming in first, where do you think you should go?" So they didn't have to stop and be like, the second guy comes in has to fight around him. But with us, I never once said, "Hey, I'm going to the outside." I
Mhm.
got in first. I went to the outside. I gave him room.
Mhm.
Flow.
Just flow. It just happened because he got there first. He went to the outside, gave me room. It's just a natural learned instinct.
Mhm.
But the other thing I did want to tag on that because it was a two-man drill, there's a lot of trust
Mhm.
because I'm confident in his skill level and I'm confident in my skill level. So I can trust that he's doing his thing.
Mhm.
Whereas if you don't have someone you can trust in that drill, you're running and I'm looking back going, shoot me. Please don't shoot me. You know?
Right.
So there is a amount of trust
Like
in
firing
skill.
desperately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a level of trust in the skill and in the your partner and your teammates. So
Right.
that's huge.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's I guess that's the answer to the question is that's
Mhm.
why it's all that level of automaticity through
Mhm.
myelination and neural pathways. And I know that like people are like, oh my God, that's a word salad. But it's
Mhm.
important to understand the true meaning of how humans learn and how they retain
Right.
information.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I know that this is something we've talked about in past episodes too, that like people think that they're much more civilized and intelligent than their ancestors, and they're really not.
Yeah.
There are things that we are capable of adapting to and we deal with on a regular basis that our ancestors didn't have to. But at the end of the day, we all still are lizard brains.
yes. Yeah.
Very much so. It's like when again, when you put into a situation under duress, can you put a key in a lock and turn it? Yes. Can you do that when the fucking bear is running at you?
Yes.
That's a whole other thing.
It just takes training.
Yeah.
It's like,
So,
and because we don't typically have to deal with those situations, we just naturally assume, well, of course I can.
well, now what your concept you're talking about is what we call the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Mhm.
So it's a scientific study that states that in so many terms that if the person is asked to do a task that they're completely ignorant of doing,
Mhm.
which means they're not stupid, they just don't know how to do it,
Right.
right? Um, they're completely ignorant of the task in which they're asked to do. Their perception of their performance of that task is going to be grossly inflated.
Mhm.
And they've measured the average American male, they believe in their head 2,000 to 4,000 times better performance than they actually perform the task to do.
Right.
They believe that they're going to rise to the occasion, that they're going to be Superman, that they're going to be John Wick, or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
And in actuality, it's not in fact true.
Yeah.
And that's not my opinion. That's not his opinion.
Mhm.
That's the way it is.
That's a scientific fact, right? And so when we'd rather them learn that at training
Yeah.
than in the real world.
Mhm.
I didn't learn to get so fast at reloads in gunfights. I learned to do it in training,
Right.
so that when it is in a gunfight, it just happens.
Mhm.
And people ask me like, how did you do that reload? And I go, because I don't think grab magazine, eject magazine, put magazine in gun. My brain just hits the button for reload and everything happens.
Right.
And that's it.
And there's a large sum of people still to this day, including firearms instructors, that believe that if your heart rate reaches a certain level,
Mhm.
150 to 190 beats per minute, you will lose all complete control of fine and complex motor skills.
Mhm.
And that is scientifically bullcrap,
Okay.
right? It is absolute bullcrap,
Mhm.
right? So there are still people that think that if your heart raises 190, these become lobster claws, and you just have to smack the side of the gun,
Yeah.
and you can't use the slide
I was
stop.
just gonna say slide stop is the classic interpretation of that. Everyone goes,
Mhm.
when your heartbeat's racing, you won't be able to find that slide stop. But I'm like, I find it all the time without even thinking about it.
How did
Like
you
it just
find the trigger?
happens.
How'd you find the trigger?
Yeah.
Right.
That's a fine and complex motor skill.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How did you remove the magazine?
Yeah. You're pushing a little button on the side
Right.
of your gun. You found
Right.
it.
Like
Wow.
NASCAR, Daytona 500 was
Mhm.
yesterday, right? So if you look at like now, when the cool thing with the technology that they have, like those guys, they actually have heart rate monitors on their bodies.
Right.
And so like Denny Hamlin, he classically, because he's a stud athlete. The people think, oh, these NASCAR racers are not athletes. I'm like, they are 100% athletes,
Yeah.
right? And so like their heart rates are 140, 150 beats per minute
Mhm.
for 4 hours straight.
Yeah.
Like like you're telling me that doesn't take an athletic performance.
Mhm.
So how do they control minute angles,
Yeah.
right? Pushing buttons. How does the Blue Angels
By the way,
fly 18 inches
talking to
away?
their team the entire time.
Correct.
Right.
So not losing communication skills,
Mhm.
not losing fine motor skills, and still
Correct.
being totally in charge of what they're doing.
And being able to feel the car, because these guys know when the car is getting loose,
Mhm.
right? And what is it based on? What's in their ass, right? So like they're literally feeling it through their buttocks.
Mhm.
Like the car is going through their buttocks, and it's like, okay, I'm feeling it getting loose
Sensory.
this way.
Yeah.
Complete sensory, yeah, sensory impulses.
Mhm.
And you're telling me that they can't critically think under stress? That's absolute
Mhm.
garbage, right? And so how do we get people to see faster, right?
Mhm.
Because if we look at like a baseball player, like they have less than 1/10 of 1 second to make a decision on the swing,
Mhm.
and they've actually proven that the pitcher, the batter can actually, the best batters in the world can actually see the laces of the baseball
Mhm.
as it comes over the top,
Right.
and they can determine what type of pitch that's going to be based on heuristics and their experience,
Mhm.
and they can swing at the ball, right?
Mhm.
So they can see faster. That means their ciliary muscles can move faster and change the lens of their eyes faster, which gives them more time to make to after that, it makes more time to make that decision,
Mhm.
right? So now their decision making skills are at the highest point because they have so much experience doing it. So they have more information to make better decisions.
Mhm.
So now they make decisions faster, which gives them more time for what now? To act.
Reaction.
And then when the reaction happens, their physical movement is at the highest levels.
Mhm.
So now how many like milliseconds are we shaving off? A significant amount.
Right.
And you're like, how do they hit that baseball in that three-dimensional space and crack it over the wall? Because they've They see faster and more efficiently.
Mhm.
They make decisions faster, more efficiently. They physically react more faster and efficiently, which gives them more time.
Mhm.
And they play a game to win a ring or a trophy.
Right.
So why aren't our police officers,
Yeah.
CCW holders, and the people that our clients do and determine whether somebody lives or dies? Why don't we train to that same level?
Well, that's like he has the class shooting with the speed of efficiency. And
Mhm.
I harped yesterday on all kinds of efficiency, right? I
Mhm.
said, why are you moving your back? Why are you swaying? Why are you
Mhm.
bending your elbows? Why, like, especially in the low ready, the only thing that should move is your shoulder
Shoulder.
and it just goes up. That's it. Like, if I can be fast, use less muscle, lose, use less energy,
Mhm.
I can be faster and I can be longer in a
Mhm.
gunfight. Think about it. If I told you to stand there and dance for the gunfight, you'd be exhausted. If I said just stay still, relax your muscles, and pull the trigger when you need to, you'd be the last Black Hawk Down days, you know?
Yeah.
So I harp on that too. Efficiency. You can be faster if you just move less.
Mhm.
And people are all over the place. You know, there was one guy, every time he would come up, he would change his shooting stance. I was like, just get in that stance before you start shooting,
Right. Right.
you know, so you don't have to keep moving back and forth. And he would do a reload and he would change his stance again. I go, man, if you just stop moving, your muscles will be more ready to react to what you need to do.
But sadly, it's an overused term, right? I
Yeah.
mean, efficiency and
Well,
biomechanics, it's an overused term, and it's honestly misinterpreted
mm,
many times.
so the term that I have heard and I prefer is economy of motion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just a
Same
mouthful when
same
you're
idea
talking.
yeah,
that yeah. Um, Kind of along with that same idea that like there's tons of things that you can teach about, you know, being efficient, things like that. But one of the things you just touched on is that nobody thinks about these things in an extended term. Like
Mhm.
if there is a gunfight, it isn't over in just a few seconds. It could
Yeah.
be, but it might
Yep.
not be.
Yep.
What if it becomes a protracted incident that you have to deal with? It's like,
Yeah.
are you capable of dealing with that on top
Yeah.
of everything else?
Well, how many times yesterday did I said, keep your gun in the fight, man?
Yeah.
Just because the drill's over, you don't need to put your gun away instantly, especially if you're waiting for a moving or move command.
Hmm.
You know, when Josh and I did that drill, my gun was in on target the entire time until he said moving.
Hmm.
Because if I just put my gun down, what am I?
Got to fight.
I'm a standing target,
Yeah.
right? I'm a still target. And I'm either in the fight or I'm moving. And that's it. And so that kind of goes to it. Stay in the fight, stay with it,
Hmm.
stay focused.
Hmm.
but the thing is, like, how in a real fight, right? How much time do you really have to expend 110% of your energy, right? So
Hmm.
how long can you expend 120 to 100, sorry, 110 to 120% of your energy? We're
Yeah, not
talking
very long.
seconds,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? You're talking seconds.
Yeah.
I've had street fights that have lasted minutes, and it felt like I literally did an 8 hour workout,
Mhm.
right? And so the other aspect is how much time do you have to expend a certain amount of energy? And so if you can hardwire efficiency,
Hmm.
I'm not a huge economy movement guy because it gets word sandwich, and it honestly is a laymanization of what we're really talking about is efficiency,
Yeah.
and because speed is a byproduct of said efficiency.
Right.
So if we hardwire efficiency into the psyche and the mindset and the actual training element, then when they perform, right, they can we can exert the max amount of energy with the max amount of time,
Hmm.
right? And so, like, when people go, how long do you have in a gunfight? I'm like, the rest of your life,
Yep.
Right.
literally the rest of your life. And how
Hmm.
long that life is going to be is determined on you and the situation.
Hmm.
But if we hardwire it and we work and we develop that, and it's a continuation,
Mhm.
then everything is working in a building blocks formation, what we talked about with
Right.
Lee.
Hmm.
Like, every aspect of the class yesterday was, and I hate the crawl, walk, run kind of thing because it's an
Hmm.
oversimplification, but
Right.
it's that building block foundation,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right? All the way to that final
Yeah.
exercise where now we have to use every skill set that was taught in the class.
Hmm.
And now you get to see kind of not even
Right.
where you stand. It's just like,
Where your levels are.
yeah,
Right.
That's it. And like
Yeah.
I said, even when we did the test, I just say, "Hey man, this is the test. This is what it is." But I'm not here to tell you you've passed or failed.
oh, you did.
I will give you the facts.
You
You
did.
passed or failed.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's just to set your time. That's to set your standard. And next time I see you, I hope it's better
Right.
because you've practiced the things I've taught you today. They've become more efficient and they become autonomous,
Hmm.
right? And they just happen. You don't think transition to pistol. It
Hmm.
just all of a sudden the rifle's not in your hand and your pistol is, and you're like, how did that happen?
Right.
It just like I said, I hit the button and it just happens.
Mhm.
That's it. You think, oh, my gun's out of ammo, whatever, reload. It just happens.
Mhm.
And remember that 5 second drill that I had you do?
Yeah.
Where it was 6 rounds, reload 6 rounds.
Mhm.
You cannot do that if you're thinking about it. It's
Yeah.
impossible to do because in 5 seconds, you cannot think fast enough to get everything done.
Right.
It just has to happen. And
Mhm.
that's it. That's the only way you can get it done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, the reload has to be perfect, and that comes from just doing it over and over and over. But you can't do it if you're thinking about it. And
Mhm.
everyone kind of found that out,
Right.
and it's hard.
Yeah.
But pushing yourself to hard standards makes you better at what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes you a better gunfighter. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about, right?
Mhm.
It's maybe not people go, oh my God, it's a terrible term, like, but that's what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We're using a gun to potentially fight another person to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, like, and the better you are at those skill sets, those hard skills,
Mhm.
the better you are at the soft skills, i.e., interview, like being a better interviewee,
Mhm.
right? And the all the aftermath perspective.
Right.
So the more you can work on your hard skills of running your gun and being accurate and running it efficiently, the better you can be at your soft skills.
Mhm.
But if you think if your hard skills are, or oh, we can just be competent, what we call consciously competent. I can stand in the perfect stance. I can sit on a flat range. I can do this, and I can shoot whenever I'm ready, when I'm ready to shoot.
Mhm.
And you somehow think that's you're going to perform, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's going to come into your soft skills, right? So when we put the use of force simulation class, you have these swaths of information that they're missing,
Mhm.
or even worse, right? They actually add information that's not there,
Right.
right? They
Yeah.
they put
Yeah.
stuff that what we call confabulation,
Mhm.
and that's a fancy term of literally putting false memories and
Mhm.
and filling the gaps with what we thought.
Right.
Right? Drop the knife, and actually he's got a freaking crowbar in his hand.
Mhm.
Right? Drop the gun, and he's got a knife in his hand.
Mhm.
It's confabulation.
Right.
Right? Or hey, it was like yeah, this guy took a step towards me. How many times have you seen that? He took a step towards me, and then we play the replay.
Mm.
He
Yeah.
didn't take
My
a step
my
towards
favorite
you.
one is, well, what kind of gun? What did it look like? I don't know, but it was huge.
Right?
And it was Derringer. And you're like, okay, well, let's just
Right.
focus in. And that thing just grows in their
Right.
brains. And
Yeah.
then they blow it up. And
Right.
you finally catch the guy. And you're like, dude, this guy had like a pocket Derringer. And this lady was just describing a Desert Eagle to me,
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, that's
Because
fitness.
they're focusing on something that doesn't matter what type of gun they have.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what type of gun they have,
Right.
right? But they're so focused on that and not the contextualization of that because they're so internally focused. Sorry, externally what we call small-minded focused
Mhm.
instead of externally large-minded focused and going, what do
Mhm.
I need to focus on right now,
Mhm.
right? And it just happens. They get sucked into the down the wormhole, and then you ask them about the simplest little things,
Mhm.
like how many rounds do you fire? I mean, really, does it matter how many rounds you fire? Not really.
Yeah.
You shoot until you engage until the threat stops, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, but it's important. But the courts have held us to that standard that we have to be able to articulate that,
Yeah.
Right.
right? Human performance factors state that we can't we we can't cognitively process all that information.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The science says that, but the courts expect us otherwise.
Right.
But
Well,
so
even the
yeah, go
last
ahead.
time that I ran that with you, in the situation, I did have to shoot somebody. And, in my mind, I shot 3 times and realized that only the first shot hit that person
Correct.
because what I was able to take into my vision and where that guy actually was no longer the same place.
Mhm.
So the 2 extra shots that I took never actually hit that person because I was still shooting at where he was prior to that.
Yeah.
Correct. So it's again back to that. Your eyes saw it, but your brain couldn't cognitively process it, so
Mhm.
you were behind.
Yeah.
What's funny is that exact thought process
Mhm.
is what saves lives in CQB. I mean, to take it in a total different direction, the bad guy, if you move fast and you move accurate and you get your job done, there will be bullet holes in the wall behind you
Right.
because they can't track you and shoot at the same time. And they're shooting where they saw you, but you're no longer there.
Mhm.
So it's the same thing why a lot of speed and violence happens in CQB. If you're fast,
Mhm.
that's not going to happen. If you step inside a door and stand there, they're going to drill you.
Mhm.
So it's that same exact thought process in happening in a real life gunfight too.
Correct.
Right.
And then for you, it's also the Tempe study of what we talk about is there's an inversely proportionate bell curve to stop shooting,
Mhm.
right? So we've measured that the average finger the average time it takes from going from frame to Glock pistol and pressing the shot
Mhm.
is 0.12 seconds.
Mhm.
That's what it averagely takes, right? So add that with reaction time, which is typically a half a second, you're at 0.62 seconds.
Mhm.
The average split times of most shooters are in a deadly force encounter are 0.25 seconds.
Mhm.
So now how many rounds can you fire in 0.62 seconds? Typically 2 to 3 rounds.
Right.
Yeah.
So because it takes us just as much time to go from there to the frame and the
Mhm.
reaction time. So this is why we see that the Tempe study was, red, green lights. That's why we see 2 to 3 rounds
Mhm.
on a suspect that's down,
Right.
or 2 to 3 shots after the suspect is down,
Mhm.
because our brain is saying turn it off. Our eyes say turn it off, right? Our
Right.
brain says turn it off.
Mhm.
Then it goes down into our synapse,
Again.
flow into our synapses,
Mhm.
right, to our neurons, into our axon, our dendrites, change the electric pulse into a chemical,
Right.
and then move the motor function.
Yeah.
That
Right.
takes time,
Yeah.
right? And then we've also studied that the longer that goes on, that use of force goes on,
Mhm.
the longer it takes for it to stop, right? So if
Okay.
we're using force, say for 4 minutes,
Mhm.
it's going to take more time for that force to stop than, say, something that lasted seconds,
Okay.
because we're continuing on that train. So
Mhm.
think of it like momentum,
Right.
Yeah.
right? So how much distance will it take a freight train to stop at 25 miles an hour,
Mhm.
right, versus 55 miles an hour,
Mhm.
right? We're talking like half a mile versus at 55 miles an hour, a couple miles.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's the same thing from one perspective to actual motion and perpetual motion, and also
Mhm.
um, the actual body function of performing a task,
Mhm.
right? So, and then we've also seen that as the threat level, the perceived threat level of the weapon goes up,
Mhm.
right? More dangerous weapon. So from, say, a handgun to a rifle, what happens to the cadence of shots? It actually goes faster,
Mhm.
because what makes you feel good in a gunfight?
Shooting.
Pressing the trigger,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And then we also see it with trigger assurance, what we
Mhm.
call trigger assurance. Well, how many times have you seen in the use of force simulation or in CQB, guy comes around a corner, he keeps touching his trigger,
Yep.
right? It's like the kid. I compare it to the boy finding his wee wee for the first time.
Right.
He just can't stop touching
Yeah. I mean, I still can't, but
it.
Right.
Age is mandatory, maturity is
yeah.
optional.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's all those human factors that
Yeah.
a lot of people don't put into effect.
Right.
And it's the human brain sending synapses, so you can't train out of it sometimes,
Mhm.
I saw a slow motion video of me doing a speed shoot,
Mhm.
and the gun locked, it was a rifle, and the gun locked back, and you could see my trigger finger pull the trigger again, and then I go to the reload,
Mhm.
because I was just going so fast and so hard that this hand started leaving the gun already to do the reload, and this hand still pulled the trigger, and but it's a dead trigger. But my
Mhm.
brain was just going so fast, pull the trigger so fast, keep going, that I had already done the reload. And in the slow motion video, you can see my finger move and pull the trigger again. I mean, it doesn't go back, but it comes off and pulls
Yeah.
back because my brain didn't tell my finger fast enough to stop because I need to do a reload. But
Right.
then the second impulse was stop trigger, start reload. So
Mhm.
as that second trigger pulls, I'm going to the reload,
Mhm.
because I'm setting all these synapses at once, trying to calculate them quickly. And
Mhm.
if you do it fast, it's not noticeable to the human eye because you're just so fast,
Mhm.
but it still happens.
Right.
Like you can't train out of it sometimes.
So, with all of this being said, and understanding the science with this, why is it that in a court of law, they don't, it doesn't seem like they're taking most of these things into account? Is that because they don't want to, because it helps their case, or because they just don't accept the science of it?
Well, I mean, there's understand, in a court of law, it's about arguments and opinions,
Hmm.
right? And so the finders of fact, which, depending on the case, right?
Hmm.
If it's a bench trial, it's a judge, and if it's a jury trial, it's a jury.
Hmm.
The finders of fact have to determine which argument is more clear and convincing,
Hmm.
right? So it's a weighted scale, right? Is
Hmm.
is it more plausible that the plaintiff has a better case than the defendant?
Hmm.
And so that's based on many factors: the weight of the evidence, the actual credibility of the evidence, and then how they present present the case as a totality of a circumstance.
Mhm.
And so it's really a convincing game, right?
Mhm.
And so like you look at the OJ trial, how much clear and convincing evidence, physical evidence was there in that in physical evidence, right?
Mhm.
DNA was a brand new thing, right? But Mark Furman, right, comes in and lies on the stand,
Mhm.
and then his testimony tainted everything he touched,
Mhm.
right? Similar to a fruit of the poisonous tree concept.
Mhm.
And so now all that beautiful physical evidence, they that and then how did Johnny Cochran seal the deal, right?
Mhm.
The prosecutors want him to try on the glove, and it didn't fit. And there are
Yeah.
claims that OJ didn't take his arthritis medicine that day, so his fingers were swollen.
Mhm.
That's like a courtroom is a play,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right? It's an act,
Right.
right? And there's actors,
Mhm.
and they act,
Mhm.
right? And some of the best criminal defense attorneys, some of the best prosecutorial attorneys are, and some of the best expert witnesses
Mhm.
are some of the best presenters,
Mhm.
actors,
Mhm.
charismatic,
Right.
best storytellers,
Distracting.
Mhm.
distracting, right? It's and so they if you have that, you're what did Johnny Cochran do best? If the glove don't fit, you
Must have
must
quit.
acquit. And
Yeah.
how many people remember that?
Yeah.
Right? We're talking like eight to 11 months of jury trial,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and you
Televised jury trial.
televised
Yeah.
every day. And you mean to tell me the only thing that people remember is the glove don't fit, you must acquit.
Yeah.
And then what does he do? He gets acquitted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then because they couldn't reach the beyond a reasonable doubt, the 99%,
Mhm.
right? So if you can't reach 99% plus,
Mhm.
as the courts say, you must acquit, right?
Mhm.
But then the civil trial came,
Mhm.
and the burden of proof is what we call preponderance of evidence,
Mhm.
which means if I sue you, Rico, I only have to prove 51%. I only have to prove 1% better than you. We start at 50%, and I only have to prove 1% more clear and convincing evidence than you,
Mhm.
and you pay me out,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So that's why he was found for wrongful death of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman,
Mhm.
because but then also the rules of evidence are different,
Mhm.
right? In tort law, you're allowed to use um, hearsay witnesses. You're allowed, so the rules of evidence are different in a civil trial. So the reason why we can't just look at the science is because people's opinions,
Right.
right? The CSI effect is real, right? When it comes to now, well, it doesn't have DNA. Well, we have witness testimony, we have videographic, but we don't have DNA, right? Can we
Yeah.
get DNA and like we can solve a homicide in 1 hour,
Yeah.
Right.
right? So the CSI effect is real. The body worn camera, right? The
Mhm.
body worn camera effect is real,
Mhm.
right? And we have to explain to people that, like, I get that a lot is where people watch a video and they like there's a lot of YouTube channels out there that render opinions
Mhm.
on use of force solely by basing watching one body worn camera footage,
Right.
and that's problematic,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right? Because the big factors it doesn't take into effect is the officer's training experience.
Mhm.
What were the previous encounters with the suspect? What was happening before
Mhm.
the body worn camera got turned on, right? Was there any priming from dispatch?
Mhm.
There are so many factors,
Yeah.
right? That we miss. And then we
Right.
render judgment. And then when the facts come out, right, it doesn't matter anymore because
Mhm.
you've already created
An opinion.
the public opinion, the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
The court of public opinion has already made their decision,
Mhm.
right? And then the redaction, right? The false claim makes the front page,
Right.
right? The redaction makes page 632
Mhm.
as a
If there is
footnote,
one.
if
Yeah.
there is
If
one,
there's one at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Usually it's because there's a lawsuit involved, and they're like, oh, let's put a redaction in there,
Yeah.
Mhm.
or not a redaction, but
A
a
retraction.
retraction,
Yeah.
right? A retraction or a correction.
Mhm.
It's just it's unfortunate.
Right.
That's what the job of an expert witness is for. Like
Right.
in my example, when I trying to help people is is trying to create that, and then going to Force Sciences class. I mean, it was insane. But it's important to understand the performance factors. Going back to what we're training, right?
Right.
All of our training has to be legally defensible,
Mhm.
Yeah.
plain and simple, right?
Mhm.
Everything you taught yesterday, like it fits that
Yeah.
mold, I guess,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right? It's in the word of combat. right?
Yeah.
We get, oh
I
my
put
God.
you in the mindset of like, look, man, this is not a parking lot walking out of Walmart. I'm gonna put you in this world so that these
Mhm.
rules are different. You're in a
Mhm.
different world, you're in a different mind space, but
Mhm.
this is what is allowed still.
Right.
So,
But when you're getting shot at, that's exactly what you're in.
yep,
You're in combat,
Mhm.
yep,
right?
Right.
So,
So I guess part of my thought process is like, how do you get people to understand this at a level that says, yes, I really do need to be taking these trainings.
oh,
I need to
yeah.
be doing
Man,
all of these
if I
things.
knew that, I'd be a millionaire.
Because, like we said,
that's the
how
marketing,
much of it
right?
Yeah,
of
yeah,
people overestimate what they're capable of, or simply think that these things are never going to happen to them. It's like, well, those two things are not
yeah,
necessarily true.
yeah,
Um,
Well,
and one of the biggest reasons why I tell people they should take training is because you don't know what you don't know. There are failure points that you're not aware of that you're not going to discover until either it's way too late or until you put the effort
yeah.
into like finding out.
I'll tell you what, the scariest CCW carrier for me is the person that only got the permit.
Right.
That's two people. If I'm a third person in that gunfight, that's two people I'm worried about now.
Hmm.
You know, I knew plenty of people that have CCWs, and I'm like, man, if we're together and we see something,
Hmm.
I'm gonna take your gun before I even pull my gun because that's how scared I am of your confidence and your skill level.
Right.
in law
But
enforcement, I've had that,
oh yeah, yeah,
right?
it happens. Anyone that has is around firearms, there's a level of confidence and training and skill level that sometimes I'm just that guy's gonna be a liability. So now I'm scared of him and the bad guy.
And he's
Right.
speaking lack thereof,
Yeah,
and not in the mindset of we can take care of business.
yeah,
And I guess usually like you're talking about the marketing game now. How do we convince people
Hmm.
that they need training? We can't. I
yeah,
mean, simply put, I'm not in the business of convincing people to train. It's
Hmm.
if you want to come train with us, great. If you don't, I mean, that's your constitutional right.
Right.
I truly believe that and it's actually not in my opinion. It's the U.S. Supreme Court,
Hmm.
right? Like our rights are given to us by God,
Right.
as as delineated by the U.S. Constitution,
Hmm.
right? So people go, "It's my constitutional right." I'm like, no, it's given to you by God, as delineated by the Constitution, right? And the
Hmm.
Second Amendment doesn't give us the right to bear arms.
Hmm.
It tells the government to f off,
Right.
yeah,
right? That you shall not infringe. And I clearly remember in my expert, witness learnings that shall means must,
Hmm.
right? Not means not touch.
Hmm.
But with rights come responsibilities,
Hmm.
yeah,
right? And that's the thing. And so, but usually our clients, and I can speak for Guardian. I probably may be presumptuous and barely, but we've talked about this. Is a lot of it's reactionary.
Hmm.
A lot of it's emotional. Like our clients come to us, the brand new ones come to us in a very emotional state. I'm not talking hysterical, but
Right.
in some level of emotional state.
Hmm.
And it's typically because they were either a victim of a crime, almost a victim of a crime, or they've been weirded out, or they just saw the world as, I mean, I know this sounds really crappy, but as the world becomes less secure,
Hmm.
our business goes up.
yeah.
Yeah.
I get that too.
We're an inversely proportionate industry,
Hmm.
right?
I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say to me, "Well, with the world the way it is, I thought I should get a gun."
Yep.
And I'm like, "You're right.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that." And I'm
Yeah.
glad you're here getting trained with that gun,
Yeah.
not just having it sit in your house as you think you know how to use it when the time comes.
Hmm.
But the big factor here is they see the world around it. So like the difference between us and our clients, and it's not because we're better than them. We all see the world going to crap, right?
Right.
But we know that if that crap comes up our driveway, we
Hmm.
have the training, the tools, and the know-how to handle that crap,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right? The difference and we can't. Is there anything we can do about the world we live in, like going down the tracks?
On an individual level? No.
Correct.
No.
It's
No.
outside of our span of control, right?
Right.
Now, creating movements and that's different,
Yeah.
right? But that's creating a synergistic relationship and somehow affecting change on a grandiose scale.
Right.
But changing the world individually, forget it, right?
Yeah.
That's a pipe dream.
Yeah.
So we know that we can't change the world individually, right?
Hmm.
We can only deal with the world that we deal with and the world we deal with.
Hmm.
But if that crazy train comes up the tracks on our driveway,
Hmm.
we have the training tools. Our clients,
Hmm.
for the most part, do not.
Right.
And so when people ask me, they're like, Josh, what are you in the business of doing?
Hmm.
And, a lot of people will say, well, I sell classes, I do this and that. I sell security in an insecure world,
Okay.
right? I sell a level of security and certainty. So I sell security in an insecure world. I sell certainty in an uncertain world,
Mhm.
right? Like our videographer, I'll just call Jacob out. Like Jacob he's one of the best. He's a great human being,
Yeah, super
Mhm.
solid, dude.
super solid dude. But he looks at us, as superheroes,
Mhm.
right? Watching us, and he goes,
Right.
"Wow,
How'd
like
you do that?
if you so
Yeah.
you and Lee can walk through the world, right, with a level like right a level of confidence that you have all the answers." And I'm like, we have the most amount of answers that we
Mhm.
possibly can, but we still can lose our lives.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's like, but there's a level of solace there. He's like that, and
Mhm.
somehow, he wants to be able to he wants to do that. And I said, absolutely, we can take you from there.
Yeah.
And he has an amazing eye of photography and videography.
Mhm.
But like we can get you there, right?
Right.
Now, if you think it's going to happen overnight, you got another thing coming.
Yeah.
If you think it's going to happen in one class, the CCW class,
Yeah.
you're out of your mind,
Right.
right? So training is a journey, not a destination,
Mhm.
100%.
right? I'm not afraid to
I
take
didn't
his
I didn't
class.
wake up in the morning and be like, I'm gonna teach firearms today.
Right.
I
Mhm.
used to keep a list of all the trainings that I've been to personally.
Mhm.
And eventually that list got too long and I got too lazy to update it. But it's like I've learned one thing in each of those things that have comprehended my whole entire understanding of this world and this knowledge. But if one thing out of each class clicked, then I have this entire toolbox and an entire skill set that I can lean on now.
Mhm.
And that's why in that class yesterday, I wasn't really dependent on one thing. I was like, do this, do that, do this, put these together, now add them up.
Mhm.
So you got to be able to add them all correctly
Mhm.
and have the mindset for it.
But the
Right.
difference is because I do expert witness testimony, you think every ounce of my training is going to be scrutinized in a court of law,
Absolutely.
100%,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right? So my CV right now is 14 pages long, like with curriculum vitae, right? And
Mhm.
so you have to, for me, because it's a part of my job, I have to document this
Yeah.
Mhm.
because like my last voir dire that I did was an hour and a half. So just my foundational interview was an hour and a half.
Mhm.
Like, okay, Mr. Logan, tell me your training experience.
Mhm.
Where would you like to start? Usually friggin' page one works the best.
Yeah.
Right.
And it takes time to develop that resume that you can then render opinions based on fact in open court without
Mhm.
getting an objection for speculation.
Right.
Because I'm no
Yeah.
longer speculating anymore. I'm I'm an expert in that case. And
Mhm.
so it's like you don't have to reach that level.
Yeah.
That's a level that some other people want to reach. Like for example, I know a lot of amazing instructors. Like I want nothing to do with expert witness testimony.
Yeah.
Sitting in a
Not my
suit,
jam.
yeah,
Right.
sitting in a suit,
Not my jam.
and testifying in court. I don't want any part of it.
Mhm.
And that doesn't make them any less instructors,
Mhm.
right? For me, that was my goal from the outset. I want to reach that pinnacle, and that's what I want. That's my pinnacle. Doesn't mean that it's the pinnacle of all,
Mhm.
but I enjoy doing it because
Mhm.
it's to me it's the most challenge,
Mhm.
intellectually speaking, because it's because the stakes are at an all time high.
Right.
I want to make sure my clients,
Mhm.
whoever I'm serving, I'm not a mercenary. Like I'll look at the merits of the case, and I've told some attorneys, listen, this doesn't look good. It doesn't look good.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say no.
Yeah, it's like it's like you won't like I'm going to render an opinion based on fact and not and on the facts, and I'm not going to just make up stuff. But
Right.
you may not like some of what I say,
Mhm.
but it's important to do that. So that's kind of what we do, and that's why it's important
Mhm.
to help people. But
Right.
they have to find the reason. It, you know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, marketing is all about value propositions and return on investment.
Visuals and all that stuff.
And
Right.
that's why we have a videographer.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
the sexy real sell sometimes.
Yeah. It's true.
Uh,
Right.
and there's I know a lot of instructors like my mentor, for example. I love him to death.
Mhm.
Like you heard my
Yeah.
conversation today. Like it's just he's one of the most harbingers of knowledge, but he is like anti business
He
and
just wants to help.
he just
That's
wants to
all,
help.
literally, those are the words he said. I just want to help him. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, and I love him to death, but he doesn't want to do marketing. He doesn't want to do that, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that because he is an exceptional human being. He has an exceptional knowledge base, and but at the end of the day, like that he doesn't want to grow his business.
Mhm.
So so he doesn't have to do the videography. He doesn't have to do the taglines. He doesn't have to do the
Right.
podcasts,
The slick
Right.
stuff.
the slick stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just that good at it. But
Mhm.
it's just a different mindset, you
Yeah.
know. And he calls me he's my mentor for firearms, and I'm his mentor for business. And sometimes I have to give him a swift kick in the dick, and
He's not wrong. I was there. He's not wrong.
right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, Josh.
Yeah.
So you're just doing this for the money? I'm like, I mean, I don't mean to sound disrespectful, but
But if I wasn't, I wouldn't have a house.
Yeah.
You
right.
know?
I gave up a law enforcement career. You gave up what you're doing. This is all we do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
If we get fired from this industry, very well qualified, heavily armed Walmart greeters.
I was gonna say, dude, Walmart. They hire anyone. What have you been doing the last 15 years? Firearms? Sit at the door.
Yeah.
And if you work at Walmart, there's a high probability you're going to get into a gunfight.
Yeah, exactly.
So
There you go.
yeah,
Just kind of a side note. There was something that I noticed in particular about the way that you ran the class yesterday. You were extremely good at like not just giving information, but you gave instructions in a very clear way and said, "This is what I expect."
Hmm.
You made it very clear that you had an expectation of like, "I'm going to say this, and you're going to do that."
Yeah.
Just that simple.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's not a lot in between. If you find that along the way that somebody's not doing what you just told them to, you're very clear about that too.
Yeah.
Like right up to the point of fucking yelling at them and saying, "Hey,
Sometimes you gotta, yeah.
and that's one of the things that I think some people might take abrasively, or as abrasive. But for myself, I think those are the sort of things that people need to experience.
Yeah. I do that, but again, to go back to that class specifically, that's a
Mhm.
combat readiness class. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. We're training hard, we're pushing hard, but in my, fundamentals, pistol fundamentals class, my voice never comes above, sleep
Right.
because it's like, hey, you're barely understanding this. I'm just going to be cool with you about it. But in
Right.
that class, like I'm going to push your stress levels. I'm going to push the
Mhm.
importance of doing it the way I said to do it because it's important that this happens next.
Right.
So sometimes I regulate my temper based on the
Mhm.
immediacy of action.
Right.
So if I said shoot 2 rounds on your own, I'll hit the timer and just but if I want you to do something immediately after that, I'll get on you to do it
Mhm.
because I need you to feel the immediacy of like I need to do this fast.
Right.
So I kind of change that temper, but a lot of times in that class, it's like, yeah, get it done, man.
Mhm.
Like we're not here to like pussyfoot around,
Right.
get it done. We got to do
Well,
it.
the other part of that too is that, you would say, fire X number of shots, and the rifle ran dry. But, it's like,
Hmm.
well, figure it out. You have a sidearm. Use
Yep.
that,
Yep.
continue. You don't just stop
Yep.
because.
And I preface that. I say, once I teach you the transition, I say
Mhm.
from now on in the rest of the class, if your rifle runs dry, transition. So
Mhm.
I lay that out on the
Right.
beginning. So if you don't do it, I've
Mhm.
already set the precedent. And the first time you don't do it, you're still learning, you're still figuring it out. But the third, fourth, final, fifth time, at the end of the day, I'm like, get it done. And same thing when I said after the reloads. I've said, I've all seen you do competent reloads. I've all seen you do them under speed. From now on, if your rifle or pistol runs dry, reload it and fire one more round.
Mhm.
That's a blanket rule. You know,
Mhm.
get it done because it's immediate action drill. And I need you to comprehend that you're just not reloading fast to hold a gun in your hand.
Mhm.
You're reloading fast to get another round on target.
Right.
So it's a comprehension drill that they can speed up and add in all those times. And so, I make that a blanket rule. And that's why I stood in front of the class and said, listen up. Like this is important. From now on, it's on you,
Right.
And I try to infiltrate that into the rest of the day. And
Mhm.
because I'm not going to stand there and go, your gun's unloaded.
I
You
know.
know?
I personally would appreciate that.
Yeah.
You
And
get a
some
5-star Google review for
Yeah,
that one.
and sometimes I'll just stand there and stare at an empty gun and not say anything because I
Yeah.
want you to understand what's
Right.
happening.
Yeah.
In like a level fundamentals class, if they go dry, I'll be like, "Hey, you need a mag," because that's not where we're not there to do speed reloads.
Right.
We're not there to comprehend empty gun feeling in the hand and move and get it something else up, get something else working in the gunfight.
Mhm.
It's there to be like, "Hey, here's a mag. I loaded it for you." Because
Mhm.
it's a different learning curve.
Right.
So on that level, it's an advanced level course. So I push you advanced level speeds, and that's kind of how I do it.
Right.
But it works.
Yeah.
So
I think that the people dealt with it. They responded well. Um, it was just I've taken other classes. I've taken obviously a number of classes with you, Josh, and I've taken classes with other training companies that I won't name. And the experience that I had yesterday was far better and more. Feel like I learned way more in that than from some places that are like much bigger, well-known
Yeah.
companies. You know, it's like what I expected was what I got yesterday,
Hmm.
and instead, what I got was something that was like for really beginner level people.
Yeah.
Even though it said this is a combat course, it's like,
Yeah.
well, you're not fulfilling that part of the thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's when the video reel
Hmm.
doesn't match the real world,
Yeah.
right? We see that a lot. And in the marketing space, I call it spark versus flame, right?
Hmm.
So, the spark, the sexy, crispy video
Hmm.
of guys running around and play carriers and all that stuff. And then you show up and it's a basic fundamental class and you're like, and then you see the instructor not being able to perform the task of which they're asking their students to perform. It's a very big letdown,
Yeah.
right? So it's all spark and no flame, right? And then you have the likes of other training companies that are really doing really good work in the field, but
Hmm.
they can't get students,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so because they have no spark, right?
Hmm.
So people don't want to be attracted to it.
Hmm.
So they have the flame, but they don't have any spark.
Hmm.
When the spark matches the flame, that's what we call in a world of branding authentic,
Hmm.
right? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, so
You
because
got what you thought you were gonna get.
Right.
exactly,
Easy.
right? And so um being surprised is okay, right? Oh man, I thought it was this class, but then exceeded my expectations. That's great. That's
Hmm.
awesome. Um, and then maybe we have to do a little tweak on the marketing, the videos and stuff.
Hmm.
But like when Jacob's gonna cut the footage, like well before we ever release it to you to the students or the social media,
Yeah.
it has to meet the brand profile
Yeah.
Right.
and doesn't meet that regard. So like and the best discerning like one of my clients, the guy at out there remain unnamed at the rifleman course,
Hmm.
he said, I asked him, how did you find, he's a retired FBI
Right.
agent. I said, how did you find Guardian? And he says, well, I looked on the USCCA site,
Hmm.
and not to ding USCCA, but he's like, it was very hard to find your class
Hmm.
in the pool of other AR-15 classes.
Right.
This is a 30-some-year FBI agent.
Hmm.
And I said, well, okay, you had this huge pool. How did you know, get it down to one class and divest yourself of $200
Hmm.
in a full day of training? He's like, I looked at the title of your class, it made sense, and then I read your course description, and it showed that it showed like a professional, like that's how professionals create a course description
Hmm.
instead of Bubba's AR class and
Right.
Dum Dum, let's fuck around and find out class. It's like,
Hmm.
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so he's like, the not only the brands sometimes scare me, like you hear this, dynamic, crazy,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
stuff. And like either the company name scares me, the people's background scare me, or the course description scares me.
Hmm.
It's either one, and based on either the name or the lack of confidence that shows.
Hmm.
He's like, but then I read that, and then when you deliver what you did,
Right.
it's authentic.
Yeah.
But he
Hmm.
looked at the name of our company, the name of our course title, the name of the description, and then he looked up all of our instructors at Guardian.
Hmm.
He's like, and you have a dream team of instructors. So I'm going to take a chance. And he said he still took a chance because he didn't know what he was expecting when he showed up.
Hmm.
And then he met me, met my staff, and then did the class. And he's like, everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the only expectations he had was like, wow, I thought I knew a little bit about this. And then you hit me with an 18-4 to the face.
Yeah.
I
So,
feel like that's how yesterday was for a couple guys.
uh,
I thought I knew how to run this gun.
right?
Turns out.
Right.
Like one
Uh,
of these aren't like the other.
Yeah.
right. So I feel like, how do I say this? There's still a lot of work that needs to get done. You brought this up earlier. It's like, why aren't our law enforcement officers receiving this level of training? Because of all the factors that play into that. And why aren't more people taking the classes and things they need, not just for the ability to pull the trigger? That's the
Yeah.
thing in itself, but it's everything else that has to be involved with that, right? It's all of the fucking legal shit that happens afterwards,
Yeah.
It's, being able to articulate what they did and why they did it, have the training so that they're not, you know, just reacting out of emotion. It's like, well, I just, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't, this is a rhetorical question because there isn't really a good answer, you know, but this is something that I think that it is so important that people take these classes
Mhm.
and continue to learn from people, especially like the two of you, because you are absolutely amazing at what you do,
Shit that.
Thank
right?
you.
And there's just so much that they can and they need to learn
Yeah.
from this. This is, even aside from everything else. Let's say you threw all of that out the fucking window. The just the raw experience of this is amazing.
Mhm.
You know, it's like you have the option on any given weekend. It's like I'm going to sit on my ass and do nothing but watch, TV and play video games.
Yeah.
It's like, or I can go out and actually be doing something in the real world that's actually useful for me,
Yeah.
gives me some exercise and interact with other people, become part of a community.
But that takes a word that is missing extremely out of this industry,
Hmm.
and it's humility.
Okay.
It takes a level of humility to show up to a class and get your ass kicked.
Hmm.
It takes a level of humility to, to be given a qual, a standards, a shooting standards.
Hmm.
And, you know, to use my example, right? There are very few quals and challenges that I fail at.
Hmm.
And it's not because I'm some Billy fucking badass. I've just been working it harder than a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I failed it by one round
Mhm.
yesterday,
Yeah.
right? And there's no excuse. I mean, I can make the excuse that I was shooting a gun that I haven't shot in quite a while,
Right.
and I haven't shot iron sights in a very long time,
Hmm.
because I'm a red dot guy. But it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Yep.
I failed, right? And
Right.
so it's but it takes that. It
Hmm.
takes you accepting the fact that I'm not where I'm at, where I want to be,
Hmm.
right? And some of the best instructors I've ever met, right,
Hmm.
are willing to take other people's classes,
Yeah.
right? I lead
Well,
a
I mean, the phrase I've stolen from you, like 100% stolen from you, is always a student, sometimes an instructor. Like
Hmm.
I'm going to a class in 2 weeks, a 3-day class, and I'm like, man, if I need to just sharpen my skills, I need to sharpen my skills, Especially as an instructor, Josh and I are talking about, we don't shoot a lot. Like
Hmm.
in our class, how many rounds did I fire? 20 all day?
Yeah.
How many did you fire? 600?
600
hashtag
at
all of them,
least.
Right?
hashtag all of them,
I fired
hashtag all
20,
of
you fired
them.
600.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
think about it, like I'm not practicing as much as you are, so I
Hmm.
got to get out there and push my limits too.
Right.
And so I am the same mindset as you taking a class.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just looking for the upper level class and that's all I'm doing is I'm always pushing that in myself.
Hmm.
And that's the same drive and motivation we need in people taking our classes as well.
Right.
Is like I want to be able to do that and I need to push myself to do it.
Hmm.
And I need to be humble enough to go to this class, realize I don't know everything and learn things. You
Right.
know?
Well, but also takes a certain person,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right? In this industry, like, we were just talking about this is, there there are some people that, like, him and I, we could do this all fucking night.
Yeah.
Like, we could do this all night. And if he didn't sleep, like, he didn't sleep and he had to go drive, he's like, hey, suck it up, Buttercup, and you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Right.
I when I worked for another company, we're in Bakersfield,
Mhm.
and we got done with, training at Bakersfield at midnight.
Hmm.
And then Bakersfield to Phoenix is around, I think, what, 6 hours,
Yeah, 5, 6 hours, sure.
5 or 6 hours.
Hmm.
So me and this other instructor drove all the way back to Phoenix. So by the time we got to Phoenix, it was 5 a.m., 6 a.m.,
Hmm.
and we had to do a 3-day class after that at 8 a.m. So that means showtime's 8 a.m.
Hmm.
So that means that I got a solid. I taught for 6 days straight, right? Got off at midnight, and I had to be ready to go at 8 a.m. the next morning for another 3-day class,
Mhm.
similar to the class that we taught yesterday. So I
Hmm.
just did 6 days of that,
Hmm.
right? Got in a car, didn't shower, got in a car, drove all the way back to Phoenix to be ready to go at 8 a.m.
Hmm.
And do my clients at that point deserve 100% of me?
Absolutely.
100%. And so
Yep.
guess what? You're going to shower, you're going to, take a quick nap as much as you can.
Hmm.
For me, chug a bunch of fucking coffee
Yeah, drink all the Red Bulls.
and all the Red Bulls, you know,
Right.
go tachycardia for 12 hours.
Hmm.
And then after that first day, when we get done with that class, the first day, I'm sleeping. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not talking to that other instructor. We're not spending any time after that first day.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
hey, high five, cool. I'm
Good
going
job
to bed.
today. Good night.
Good night, right? So that I can at least catch up a little bit.
Right.
But my clients deserve 100% of me,
Mhm.
right? And that's the way it is. So when I've had instructor candidates in my USCCA instructor class
Mhm.
that are late, that aren't performing, and they say, I had this going on, I had that going on, or and I'm trying to be empathetic,
Mhm.
or I didn't sleep well last night. I'm like, oh,
Cool. I was running a night vision class.
right, like
Yeah.
I was here on time. In fact, I was here early to set up
correct,
for you.
right.
Right.
And if you're late, you're way late. And so like, and it's not that, or like, oh man, your USCCA instructor classes are in Fountain Hills, and I live in, I live in, whatever, right? I live in
Mhm.
Queen Creek. It's like, okay.
Right.
Like when I went out to teach at Palo Verde,
Mhm.
what did I do? I rented a hotel room,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? I didn't drive all the way out to Palo Verde, because it's a long drive. I did what was necessary to do the job.
Right.
And so like him and we could go all night talking about this stuff,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and it drives us.
Yeah.
And then wake up tomorrow morning, we have to go to work.
Yep. I mean,
Work.
there's been weekends where I've had a night vision class Friday night, a rifle class all day Sunday, and then pistol fundamentals. I'm sorry, rifle Saturday, pistol fundamentals Sunday.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm a wreck on Sunday, emotionally, mentally. But guess what? My customers will never know
Right.
because I'm there to give 100% of myself to them
Mhm.
because they are paying me.
Mhm.
Like I said out loud yesterday, hey, guys, this is your time. You're paying me. I want to
Right.
put as much time into you as I can.
And they didn't
Yeah.
receive a discount, did they?
No,
So
not at
that
all.
means they don't get a discount on you.
Yeah, exactly. Like I have to earn your money. I'm
Mhm.
here to earn your money, and so I have to do a good job no matter what.
Mhm.
Well, and also they're divesting themselves of the most valuable resource in the world,
It's
time.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
They're taking time away from their families, from their life, from everything, right? To
Mhm.
trust you, right?
Mhm.
And that's the thing. And that's why I think where him and I, are different in the training world, is because we care,
Mhm.
right? There's a lot of guys that are just doing it just for the money,
Mhm.
right? And that's why I had to correct my mentor today. He's like, you seem like you're really focused on the money. I'm like, well, I mean, that's what makes the world go round,
Right.
right? But at the end of the day, we're never gonna. We've had these conversations.
Yeah.
We're never gonna trade our passion and purpose for profit.
Mhm.
We know that if we put passion and purpose in the forefront, profit is a byproduct of that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
And even during that conversation he was having with his mentor, I brought up afterwards, I go, the old saying of you didn't pay the mechanic for the 30 minutes he worked on your car. You paid him for the 30 years he learned how to do it in 30
All right.
minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? That's where we are with gunfighting. You didn't
Mhm.
pay me because I woke up and read it out of a book. You
Yeah.
paid me because I've been to all these trainings myself, learned all the applications, and now I'm giving them to you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right? So if I had a book and I was reading mine, I could just sell you the book for the same price and sleep in. Right? But
Right.
no, I'm getting up my ass up early to go set up the range to be ready for you when you get there so
Mhm.
that I can impart my knowledge on you.
Yeah.
And that's part of it.
And it's not that he's wrong. It's just a different mindset. It's
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
a different it's just a different mentality in what services we're providing. And
Yeah.
Right.
it's because I've taught with him, and I continue to teach with him, and he's opening doors that honestly some days I don't feel like I deserve, but I know that I do deserve it because I've put the time in,
Right.
and that imposter syndrome always seeps in. But
Mhm.
it's just a different mindset he has, and I respect the hell out of it.
Mhm.
It's just he calls me, and I think he just needs a recalibration, and
Yeah.
what he's gonna do anyways. But like I think he's just but he's also a lifelong student.
Mhm.
I've learned that lifelong student from him the best. So now he's in a position where he's trying to learn the business side of the game. And that's okay. And he can take my advice. He doesn't. And there's times he hasn't taken my advice. And I'm just like, oh. And he just goes, all right, come on, give it to me. And I'm like, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't
Don't
matter.
matter. Don't worry.
And I had to, my final thoughts to him were, listen, this is coming from a position of love.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
It's not meant to demean, demoralize, or degrade. It's just meant to, this is coming from a position of love because you deserve it.
You're
Right.
selling yourself short, and I'm here to tell you that.
I'm literally fighting for you.
Yeah.
I'm literally
100%.
advocating for you.
100%.
Right.
And I said, if I was sitting there, and if I told him, I said, I've told him in the past, I said, if I was sitting there at a negotiation table, you'd probably be kicked out. I know I would be kicked out first,
Yeah.
right? And then you
Yeah.
subs, and then me summarily doing it for you, you'd probably be kicked out second
Yeah.
because I would be advocating and banging them on the walls and just banging your drum because I'm going to be your biggest advocate on that end.
Right.
There are very few men in this industry that have accomplished what he's accomplished, and I am blessed to have him as a mentor and a guide. But then there's certain things that just like I'm just like, ooh, and I love that. It's just like you're like I was like almost bending the steering wheel of my
He
truck.
was banging his head.
But but like like that's what drives us. We
Yeah.
love what we do, and it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Well, I mean, like I think I said it in the class, like there's 2 days on the range to me that are the perfect days, right?
Okay.
The day I go out and I train hard and I push my limits and I get faster at my draw and I shave tenths of seconds off my draw. And then the days like yesterday where I go out and I shoot 20 rounds all day and I had just as much fun,
Right.
right? Because I love what I do and I love sharing the knowledge and I love showing you and talking to you and understanding and explaining and telling, hey, here's a trick. Don't mess with your arms, just move in the shoulders,
Right.
stuff like that. And it's like, I love that. And so I'm going to continue to do it as long as I possibly can.
And then there's a third one
Okay.
when you get to see right guys that you certify and really respect and love and have the ability. I don't want to say mentor, but that's a strong word. But watch, right? Go from leaving gunfighter,
Mhm.
right, to this idea of starting your own
Crazy
company.
idea.
This
Yeah.
crazy idea of starting your own company and
Right.
and and like that, like I don't know how many times I said it to you yesterday. Like I was proud of him, like watching that. Like it's and so
Yeah.
like that's the third thing. Like if I didn't fire a single round yesterday, right, I would have been just like this. I wouldn't say proud papa, but
Yeah.
it's a similar concept. It's just like
Mhm.
making him to realize the power that he has within him at gun prom. That's
Yeah.
what that for me is
Yeah.
like why don't we just do that? And then it just kind of steamrolled from there and then watching all of the people that I'm, like, and that's what my mentor had said is like I asked him, I said, how could I ever repay for you for what you have given me and continue to give me?
Mhm.
And he's like, do what I did for you to others.
Mhm.
That's how you even begin to pay, not will repay me, begin to repay me.
Mhm.
And now it's like collaborations, it's helping other instructors. That's the third one.
Well,
Watching
I
these
mean,
instructors
on that
succeed.
same token,
Huge.
I think I've talked about it before on your podcast about my coin holders, right? There's 3
Mhm.
coin holders. When I left Gunfighter and I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. I've been building guns for 10 years. I am not qualified to do anything.
Mhm.
And there's 3 people, Josh, Shannon, and my buddy Batman, that were like, dude, why don't you teach? You always just do it for free anyways. Like, why don't you
Right.
get paid for it? And I'm like, wait, what? You can do that? What? It's a thing? And so those 3 people pushed me to do what I do, even though I was just willing to do it for free all the time.
Right.
And they're like, turn it into a business, man. Do this. You're so good at it. And then I'm like, well, write a lesson plan. I'm like, okay, how do we do this? And then it just the knowledge started going into the computer and coming out on the paper.
Right.
And it was just those 3 people driving me put me to where I am, and
Mhm.
it's crazy to say that those specific 3 individuals I owe everything to, but I'm doing what I do because of them,
Mhm.
you know. And it's like he said, he's a proud papa, but I look at him as like, well, you're the reason I'm doing this, like
Yeah.
you got me into it. And so it's like a mutual respect of like
Right.
he helped me, I helped him, we're all in this together and we're just a family and a team, you
And
know.
that's what is missing in this industry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? It's sorely missing. You see it at SHOT Show, you see it at, conventions, and it's just like, why are we
Yeah.
like, and it's like, it's fun. And they're like, well, Lee's like a competitor. I'm like, you missed the whole,
Yeah.
you missed the
2 different ball
whole,
games, man.
that's the
There's
main
football and
point.
baseball, both sports, 2 different things.
Yeah,
Right.
correct.
Yeah.
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 So,
Well, my old business partner used to say, I don't believe in competition. I believe in co-opetition.
Okay.
And he would be like, we can work together and make all of us great, or
Yeah.
you can fight against me and waste all your energy.
Right.
But I'm not going to do that. And I
Mhm.
was like, that's a good way to put it, man.
Right.
Like if we work together, he offers things that I don't offer.
Mhm.
Like he said earlier, he gets into the more neuroscience stuff of it, and and he can explain that, and I'm just like, yeah, what he said, you know. And then I get into more of the running around with non stuff, and that's fine because we're on the same team. You know, we
Right.
just have different. You know, most pitchers have DHs, right? We're on the same team. They're both playing to win the game. They
Right.
can't do the same things,
Right.
but they're both really good at what they do.
Yeah.
And that's the exact thing.
Right. And they're both necessary.
Yeah,
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good place for us to kind of leave off here.
You got a shotgun question.
Oh,
I
yeah,
forgot about
dang.
Okay.
I can't. I was thinking earlier. I was like, I can't remember the question. I can't remember the question.
Oh, he had a
Yeah.
shotgun question.
So-
You know, he's like asking all these questions beforehand, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that could be a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before we actually started recording, I had asked the question of, the likelihood of having a class like the one we did yesterday, but with shotguns.
Yeah.
And then there was kind of we should cover that in the podcast.
Yeah.
You
So-
want to take your
Sure.
take, and I'll take my take.
So, as we both kind of touched on, shotguns are very.
Well, the reaction is important.
Yeah.
Like when he asked the question, what was our reaction, Rico?
just
I've been asked by like 3 people, when you do a shotgun class? I go, when you find me 10 more people to do it.
right.
And by the 3 people I've told that, and they're like, well, how can I do that? I'm like, how can I do that?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to run a shotgun. If I open a class for those 3 people, I'd have those 3 people. So one, even though there's some people, few people that want to get above and beyond with a shotgun, it's not a very common platform these days. People have a pump in their house for home protection. They don't even care to go past that. That's one factor. And 2 factor is it's a difficult weapons platform, and people don't understand that. Like, unless you're running, you don't show up to a class like that with a Maverick 88 shotgun, right?
You
show up to
can.
that,
You can. It's just
but you're just gonna have a suck day, right? When we talk about that, the equipment makes your day suck. You're gonna suck. But if you show up with the Benelli, it's like, okay, now we can run that stuff. You show up with something good, and they're just a difficult weapon system, and then the frustration level sets in very quickly,
Right.
because of that. So that's me. Personally, it's the amount of people that will actually do that, that are willing to do that and want to do that, is very low, and the frustration of, you have 2 people and one's a Benelli, super aces, black mamba, whatever,
Right.
and this guy's got a $120 shotgun. How can you teach the both platforms? You're like, well, do this, but he does it in 3 seconds. She does it in 19 minutes because she's hand loading each round into the gun. And they're like, well,
Right.
here's the shotgun class. So,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
his side.
Yeah. So my experience in law enforcement, it's an easier proposition. So you go to an agency that's running lethal shotguns or less lethal shotguns, but we focus on just the lethal shotguns. It's an easy proposition because a majority of, like, if you're teaching, Oakland Police Department, for example, that with that, they're going to have one platform. So they're going to have an 870 or, a Winchester 1200 or, a Mossberg 500, 590 or a Benelli platform. There's one platform. When you teach open civilian classes
Right.
or open law enforcement classes where there any law enforcement agency, you're going to have, so like say you have 12 students on the range, you're going to have 12 private lessons going on the same time, because you're going to have like one guy with an 870, one guy with a Mossberg 500, another guy with a 590, another guy with a Spinelli Supernova, another guy with a Benelli M2, another guy with a Benelli M3, another guy with a Benelli M4, another guy with a Ruger, with a an Ithaca, another guy that wants to show up with a
1301.
Keltec,
Yeah.
another 1301, which is a Benelli, Benelli on Beretta. So like you have all
and
of
then
these.
half those people have red dots and half don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Then
Further complicates things.
okay, so you have all the different models of shotguns, right? And all the manual of arms for the most part are different. There's
Okay.
nuances, but they're different,
Right.
right? So does it have a side load? Does it have a top load? Does it have a bottom load? How does the elevator work? Does it have a shell latch? Does it not have a shell latch? How many rounds, how many shells does it hold? Can it shoot 2 3/4? Can it shoot 3-inch Magnum? Can it shoot 3.5-inch Super Magnums? And then once we get all through the weapon system,
Mhm.
Okay, what shotgun shells are they showing up with? Okay, so
Yeah.
because not all double aught buck is created equal.
Okay.
Not and so you could have and then you could have three sequential serial numbered Remington 870 police magnums,
Mhm.
and all three of them will pattern different with the same lot number of ammo. So like literally I could have the same lot number ammo
Mhm.
with three sequential serial numbered Remington 870 police magnums, right? With say just a cylinder choke gun on it, a cylinder choke barrel on it, with the same lot number of federal, flight control, the best buckshot you can ever have,
Mhm.
and they're all patterned differently. So each gun and barrel is different as independently operating and performance wise as your fingerprints,
Gotcha.
right? So then each of them are going to pattern differently. Each of them are going to zero differently if you're running red dots. So and then slings are the consideration. So now we've gone with just the gun
Yeah.
and then the ammo,
Mhm.
right? And then zeroing it with buckshot versus slugs,
Mhm.
right? Everybody goes, I love shotguns because of the versatility ammo. But can you do a slug select drill, a single slug select drill on the fly? Can you do a single slug select drill from a patrol, a cruiser ready status? Can you do a slug select drill from a cruiser ready perspective?
Mhm.
Wait, what's the difference, right? And so then can you do a double select drill, right? And then you add in slings, which is the number one problem in rifle classes,
Yep.
Mhm.
right? Now you add that into the equation, right?
And then after that, even more equipment is where are you loading from? Are you loading from a belt? Are you loading
Side
from a side
saddles,
saddle? Are you loading from a speed loader? Like you have a competition thing where you just slide it in, it goes. Are you loading from the stock?
Yeah.
correct.
It's like an AR mag. Where's your AR mag? Here or here?
Yeah.
Okay, fix one of those.
And where do you stuff the AR mag? Right here.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the if you look at the three largest demographics, right, eight rifle, typically AR-15 platform,
Mhm.
your pistol and your shotgun, like demographically speaking, that's the smallest demographic that I teach per year. Um, there's like Lee alluded to, I know a lot of people who own shotguns. I don't know a lot of people that can run them really well.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I can hand a nutless monkey a fully loaded shotgun, um, and they can shoot it okay, not
Right.
fast, not efficiently. And the
Right.
concept we always say in shotgun, if you're not shooting, you're what? Loading,
Yes.
Mhm.
because it's the most minimum capacity weapon system that we have.
And
Mhm.
arduous to load.
Very
Yes.
arduous, right? Because we're loading one shell typically at a time.
Mhm.
Name another semi-automatic platform that you do that. There isn't,
Mhm.
right? And so, it's loading one shell at a time. But can you take out the shells in a rapid and safely and efficient manner and load in slugs,
Mhm.
right? On the fly. And not like unload the shotgun and then load slugs.
Yeah.
I'm talking about how to do that on the fly.
Right.
And so it's a complicated system, and also it's the highest recoiling system as well. So, you're to do like the class that we did today.
Mhm.
Imagine if we shoot the same amount of shotgun shells.
Yeah.
If you think you're sore now,
Mhm.
I think a
right?
nap was involved today because of
Right? And
yesterday.
and how much does an AR-15 recoil?
Almost not at all.
Now you're shooting slugs all day and
Uh-huh.
buckshot and slugs all day,
Yep.
right? And then depending on how your shotgun's set up, like I run a Benelli M4 and I have a Remington 870 Police Magnum. Though those are my both go do two shotguns, semi-automatic and pump action. Like,
So even just between us, I run a Mossberg 930 and a Mossberg 500. So even just between us, we would be differences,
Yeah.
you
correct.
know?
So now, like, imagine him trying to teach the shotgun, and I'm trying to teach the shotgun, and I'm trying to demo it to the class.
Right.
Mhm.
Like, good luck.
Yeah.
So for our future so we looked at a lot of problems, right?
Mhm.
So like the demographics as well. They're like it takes a specific person wanting a shotgun class. But the solution that we've developed for Guardian and going forward and eventually to the point where we develop these programs is running a Remington 870 operators course, a Mossberg 500 590 course, and a Benelli
Mhm.
operators course, whether that's
Right.
whether that's a pump action or semi-automatic, with the exception of the M3. But even when the M3 is operating in a semi-automatic version, it operates the same way as the M2 and the M4, and then when it's in a pump action, it's operating like a supernova. So it's
On all the stuff he just said about all those different kinds of shotguns,
Mhm.
most people, if you ask them what kind of a shotgun you have, they go, I don't know, a
Yeah.
pump.
Yeah.
And you're like,
right.
okay,
So
well,
like even me speaking in a very factual basis in that regard, there's not a lot of people that could tell me the difference between
Right.
a majority of those brands, and it's not because they're stupid.
Well, yeah.
It's just they don't know what they don't know,
Right.
right? So our goal is if we it's not if, it's when we develop a shotgun program. It's going to be a Remington 870, 870 operators course of five Mossberg and Benelli, and I would like to have a fleet of shotguns for each one of those,
Mhm.
so that then the person doesn't even have to show up with a shotgun,
Right.
right? They could just rent one of our shotguns
and then at least you put everyone on the same page.
Right.
exactly,
And
right?
like everyone yesterday was in an AR-15 platform. If
Mhm.
there was an AK guy, which
Yeah.
I would have been okay with,
Totally okay.
Mhm.
but I would have been like, okay, the reload, I'll talk to you in just a second. Let me talk to these 9 people, and I'll
Right.
talk to you in a second because I'll tell you what to do, but I don't want to tell 9 people to listen to me jackjaw about your AK.
Right.
So I could have flexed with that, but we all ran the same platform technically.
But Bill in our rifleman class shows up with a what? A Tavor,
Right. Yeah.
right? But the blessing with Bill is he teaches for IWI.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not really teaching Bill how to run a Tavor.
Right.
He came to that class to get reps,
Mhm.
and I gave it to him, right?
Right.
Mhm.
So, but it happens. The craziest rifle story I ever had. I had a guy show up to a rifle class, like a which is typically like an AR class
Mhm.
with an M1 Garand.
Oh,
So
solid.
get off my
Here's your money back.
get off my lawn.
Here's your money back. Call me tomorrow.
No, he ran the piss out of that thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
some people can.
8 rounds at a time before he got sick.
When we were at the gun shop, I was like, dude, I shoot with this dude that runs the piss out of a Tavor too.
Right?
And
Yeah.
every time he lets me shoot it, I go to do the reload and I slam the mag into the front of the gun and go, whoops, sorry. And
Yeah.
put it up
Right.
back here because it's that neural pathway is already existing.
We checked it out at the gun store. What was the one rifle I looked at was the that FNFAL,
Yeah, the foul.
The Rhodesian breaststroke
Yeah.
Yeah.
FAL.
Right.
Like imagine, like I've had crazy, like I've had FALs, I've had G3s in my class. I've just had some weird funky
Mhm.
guns, and there's some guys that show up with like an FNFAL and they can't run it,
Mhm.
so you have to teach them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so like, and that's what Mark, in my opinion, is a profession we talked about today,
Mhm.
is being a weapons craft master,
Mhm.
right? The best of what they do, like him and I nerd out on guns.
Mhm.
We were in that gun store today, and how bad did we nerd out on stuff?
Yeah, we're talking about everything.
Well, like I
Right.
saw it
Everything.
at 1897 Winchester,
Yeah.
12 gauge. I'm like, it was $300,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I could totally slam fire the shit out of this thing, and I could cut the barrel off
Yeah.
and send it to Morgan
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but how many like fire instructors in history is going to see a Winchester
Yeah.
1897
Know
and be
what
able
it is,
to know
one.
what it is,
Mhm.
Well, and
right?
like when the guy said
It's no disrespect.
platypus, I was like immediately like, oh, I want to see it. Not like, what'd you guys say when I said I got a platypus? Isn't that I know what the animal is, right? This is just our
So,
passion. It's our nerd out on.
right, and there's so there like and there's a lot of people that nerd out on the guns that can't shoot them well,
Mhm.
right? And there's a lot of people that can shoot them well, they don't nerd out on the guns.
Right.
It's kind of we're kind of like, we just become best friends. We're gonna go do karate in the
Bunk
garage.
beds.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's just, it works out
Yeah,
that way. So I hope that answered your question on the shotgun
Yeah.
world.
from
It's
both of us too.
Right.
both of us. It's
And so, without going too much further into it, I'm guessing that same logic and reasoning is also applies to PCCs because you have so many different variations in what they can be in
yeah.
setups.
Somewhat.
Well,
A PCC is kind of like an AR where you're generally loading a stick type
Mhm.
mag. Your bolt release may be in different locations based on the model, your trigger, but it's generally an AR-ish type platform
Mhm.
that most people are running these days.
Mhm.
There's some people are running the Ruger, I forget what it's called, the like the full stock one.
yeah, like it's based on the 1022.
Yeah, 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 and the takedown.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I mean, but the concept is still the same with a lot of those. So PCC, but the PCC game is very, very competition heavy, and that's just not what I delve into.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if someone shows up to my rifle class with a PCC, I'll teach them. It's very easy.
Right.
Like I said, if someone shows up with an AK, I
Yeah.
can teach them, but it's just the common platform for that environment is not going to be that.
Yeah.
Well, part of the reason why I asked that is because, and then I had mentioned this to you like one of our training classes, that like a lot of the discussion isn't necessarily around the philosophy of use of these weapons.
Mhm.
You don't really get into that because people buy what they buy because they think that's going to work for them,
Hmm.
whether that's an FAL, a PCC, or just a regular AR. It's
Yeah.
like for whatever reason they've decided this is going to work for me and this is what I'm going to use,
Yeah.
right? So, but because there's such a variability of like where they get their information from, what they're seeing, what they think,
Hmm.
romantically, it's like I want this.
Yeah.
The guy with the grand, it's like okay, that's your thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Romantically, the FNFAL and Rhodesian brushstroke. Yeah.
yeah, you know. So there's a lot of things that play into people's decisions to buy whatever firearm they're going to get, right?
Hmm.
Um, I just think that it's interesting that it's not as simple as just buying the firearm. You actually need to know how to run the
Yeah.
thing,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
in all the different situations and being able to problem solve
Hmm.
on the fly.
Yeah.
So again, it comes back to the whole thing. It's like it's important that people come and take these classes and
Yeah.
Yeah.
understand and figure out what they don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you were talking about PCCs. It's, like there's like NRA law enforcement has a select fire
Mhm,
uh, uh, weapons platform.
mhm.
So like in law enforcement, it's easy. What are our select fire options? MP5,
Yeah.
right? Like the age old worlds are MP5 and AR, right? Or M4, right?
Mhm.
MP5, but now we've got the MP7, right?
Right.
We've got a lot of different, and then now, B&T's coming out with that. But if you look at like the, most of your Strybogs, your BNTs and that really kind of run on that AR platform,
Right.
right? And then the MP5 kind of runs on its own platform, and even it's still there.
Mhm.
And even the MP7, right? It's more of a kind of an Uzi style, put it
Yeah.
in the grip. But like I've talked to Bill and I said, like, what do guys show up with? And he goes, "Oh, you should see it." He's like, I've seen guys show up with the old Smith and Wesson, the Carl
Oh
Gustav
yeah. Yeah.
looking like the Gustav looking guns, and
Yeah.
he's like, dude, you see, he's like, I've seen guys with grease guns. I'm like, what?
Oh,
Grease guns?
first, let me
Check it, check it. He's like,
yeah.
I've seen guys show up with Tommies, like
Yeah.
21
Yeah.
Tommies. I'm like, and so like that's the thing. It's to from an instructor development perspective is to really be the best at what you do,
Uh-huh.
right? You should be able to pick up most guns and know what to do with them,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Like a Tommy is it a lot. I don't know how many people pick up a Tommy and they're like, holy shit, this thing it's
It is
heavy.
heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's heavy. It's a milled receiver, and but then they go, wait, there's two like select levers. There's safety and there's a select lever, and just knowing that it's
Hmm.
important. And okay, does it have a blish lock? Does it not have a blish lock? And so it's important for us to, I think him and I in that regard is to understand that
Yeah.
that stuff so that we don't get stumped,
Yeah.
right? We don't get stumped, and
Yeah.
it's
In
for us it's
fact,
important.
based on that, like he said, you don't get stumped. When I'm running range days, like, and I'm pushing myself, I'm
Hmm.
usually running an AK
Okay.
because I'm further challenging myself to do learning and to do pushing forward. Where if I
Right.
ran the day with an AR, cool, it's fun, I push my limits,
Yeah.
but I understand the capability of my skill set with that gun already.
Yep.
Now I switch to an AK and I'm re-pushing my limits throughout
Hmm.
the day. And I'm still, the fundamentals still apply, how I stand, how I shoot, how I pull a trigger, but my
Right.
reload changes drastically,
Right.
right?
Like I took a their highest level class at a local gun range, and it was a pistol class, their highest level pistol class, but I did it with my 357 Magnum 7-shot L frame,
Right.
right? And I was running speed loaders, HKS speed loaders. I was running moon clips, full moon clips, and speed strips.
Hmm.
And I showed up running appendix with a 7-shot ported comped, you know, Magnum, 357 Magnum. And the instructor's like, what gun are you running? And I'm like, and I show it, and he goes, holy, he's like, you're shooting 38s today, right? I'm like, nope, 357 Magnums,
Yep.
300 rounds of 357 Magnum,
All right.
right? And how challenging is that?
Yeah.
It's a challenging affair.
Yeah.
And so he's like, why would you do that? I said, because it, like, no offense, if I take that with a semi-automatic pistol, it's not going to be challenging.
Mm-mm.
Right.
Like, but with a 7-shot 357 Magnum revolver,
Hmm.
right? I wasn't the fastest to reload, but the question is, could the students ever even think about using a revolver?
Right.
Yeah.
The answer is no, right?
Yeah.
And so, like me, I was just like, I'm gonna just,
Yeah.
you know,
But
get a go crazy.
we have to push our own limits sometimes too.
And
And like
my hand
yesterday,
felt every ounce of every
oh
single
yeah,
one of those
yeah.
rounds.
Like I told you in the class, well, not you, but I told the whole class, I said, this is what I do. Think
Mhm.
about it. I choose the more difficult one to do
Right.
more often
Mhm.
because it's further training me into that. Well, the easy one I can do. I know I can
Yeah.
do it. So am I just going to rely on the easy one and just do it, or am I
Yes.
going to push myself to do the harder one so I get more
If it's
comfortable?
to beat you, absolutely.
But
It's pretty faster than you,
then
absolutely.
remember later in the day, I said, "Hey, this is a speed drill. Maybe it's
Right.
time to choose the one that's for speed, not
Right.
for learning."
Yeah.
So you got to push yourself in those applications. Just even the same rifle, but in a different ready position to present from it.
Right.
And when in doubt, cheat like a motherfucker.
That's
There
right.
you go.
That was 6 rounds. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Timer doesn't say though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
There you go. Awesome. I can't tell you how awesome it is to have both of you here at the same time.
Yeah.
It
Super
was
fun.
amazing to like have, the training class yesterday and having you both there. Uh, I love talking to you guys. I really do. I can't tell you that enough. It's just always a pleasure being in the class and talking with you personally, and then having you here is amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. Yeah.
absolutely. Any closing thoughts you have? No.
I was thinking about
All right. Well, in that case, again, thanks for coming out,
Sure.
Yeah.
and
Thank you for having us.
I will talk to you hopefully soon.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye, everybody.